I'd like to call this meeting of the Township Board to order. Will members and guests in the audience please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
You guys,
As we work through the agenda here, I want to point out that we have public comment cards in the audience. They are stationed over by our police chief there, and if you fill one of those out, you'll have the ability to speak at the end of the meeting on any subject matter. We do allow for public participation during agenda items, and so we want to make sure that we stick to that tonight as well on agenda items only, and then any subject in public participation at the end of the meeting. So with that, we need to do a roll call, Madam Clerk.
thank you. Trustee Wade?
Here.
Trustee Matuzak?
Here.
Trustee Kress?
Present.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Here.
Trustee King?
Present.
Treasurer Aiello?
Present.
Clerk Metzer here.
Okay. All right, and then we have 11 items on the agenda tonight. We need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk, any changes to this as presented?
No, except that I do believe there was an addition to the packet on the board rules. There was a minor change on that. I'm trying to locate that and send it to you guys, so I'll work on that among the other many things I do going on, and include that in the packet.
Okay, all right, well, then we'll need a motion to accept the agenda. Anybody?
I'll make a motion.
by Treasurer Aiello.
I'll support.
Supported by Trustee Wade. Discussion.
I'd just like to say, our residents did not get active view of the supplemental information that's with the agenda packet. We had the agenda, but the information that goes with it, the supplemental information, that documentation was missing all weekend.
It was, the clarification, the backup documentation for the public doesn't go in until Monday at 9 a.m., which it was. That's always how it's been.
Okay. All right. Well, so,
It's always been in there.
I thought I had the floor, Chair.
I thought you were done, but.
No, no.
But by all means.
No, but
Yep.
at the end of the day, when we are voting on these things, and if we're expecting engagement and participation by our residents, and we want to work in a spirit of transparency, and we're working with our Open Meetings Act, I completely believe that we should be giving this information out when the agenda goes out. And it should be there for you to be able to see, and it should be locked, and everybody should have access to it. And the fact that there's a bunch of discrepancies, or it's up, but you're not looking at it right, or it's here, or it's somewhere in Laserfish land, or everybody apparently doesn't know how to use the internet for whatever reasons and can't find it, I find it to be inappropriate and don't think that it's right for us to continue in this manner any longer. That's it.
I appreciate those comments. We are on the issue of approving the agenda. Any further discussion on approving the agenda as presented? Seeing none, a roll call, please.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
No.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Okay. All right. So
Mr.
that,
Supervisor, if I may, just one thing. My computer is not functioning, so I am in fact going to use my phone to access the agenda. But that is all I am doing, is accessing the agenda.
And that's allowed. That is allowed.
Let me get a picture of it.
You can get a picture of it, but this stupid thing,
okay. It's my understanding that, Madam Clerk, you have a public service
Yes.
announcement.
Yes, to the point. I think it's appropriate. Here, because it's here. It's been stated several times that the public doesn't have access to the agenda. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that. I said that I would I perform with our communications department a public service announcement, and I will still follow through with that, but I thought, let's just do it right here, right now. And I can show you all how easy it is.
To be clear, did not state about the agenda. I'm talking about the supplementary information, the packet that the folks, that we are voting on,
And
those items.
Who was
That's all.
asking for the packet? I'm sorry, who was asking?
Hey, Kim, you gotta hit the button. There you go.
Yeah, I'm juggling, always juggling.
We're going to continue on with the public service announcement.
No, I'm borrowing his and we work
I
it
just
out.
want everybody to see this, and so we have, on my computer I have Google, but I think Microsoft Edge should work. So if we go to clintontownship.com, and I'm doing this for the benefit of the public, so they can do it, so they can see how long it takes for me to do it. All right, so this can't be reached. Hang on, I could have spelled it wrong. Hang on, I could have spelled it wrong, Mr. Shell. Take pleasure in other people's failures. I know you do. Okay, as you can see now, clintontownship.com takes you to our website. And then for those that want to access our agenda, guess I need these, you would scroll down to Township Calendar, and there's choices that you can make. So you can choose Historical Commission, Civil Service meeting, so on. But today's meeting is stated Monday, February 24th. You click on that and scroll down, and you'll see regular board meeting, Board of Trustees. Download the agenda on the right. That's click number 2. Proceed to this site. That's click number 3. And there appears your agenda. Simple. 3, and it's all here. And then also in these paper clips that are on here, that is the backup information that you'll find in addition to the agenda item. All of those items have, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, those items do have backup. And we, as a board, by state statute, are required to have only one board meeting a month, so 12 a year. However, in Clinton Township, we have anywhere from 22 to 24 meetings a year. So we do that, we add that extra meeting in that month so that we can keep things going in our community and meet the demands of the needs of the community, which makes it very responsive and transparent. Our meeting, so in a 2-week period of time, we are building this agenda. It takes time. The authors that are typing in the agenda item, they'll put that to reserve that spot. And that's a reservation so that the public knows what's coming. And the public gets access to this agenda the Wednesday before the meeting. So they know exactly what to expect in terms of a title. If they have any questions, they can certainly ask us, they can call us, they can email us. There's a lot of information here. So by Friday, the board members, that's all of you, get the attachments that are associated with that, and you're given the weekend to go over them and study them. It would not be a good idea to have the public have that information at the time because you haven't even had time to review it. And you are the reviewing body. You are the ones making the decisions. So it has always been done that way, and I'm not saying that's why it should always continue to be that way, but it works. And it works really quite well. I have never had a constituent of mine contact me and say, I need this information quicker. I don't, and again, if they do, I would answer whatever specifically they were inquiring about. So on Friday, the board gets that information. I believe it's at 9 a.m. in the morning. So you guys get it quicker than when I was a trustee. I couldn't get it till like 5 o'clock at night because they had to manually print everything out, and the whole packet was a stack of documents. It's not like it is today where it can be quickly emailed and it's easily accessible for all of you to utilize. And And then we were given time to read it, think the information over the weekend, and then the public would not have gotten the agenda yet. They wouldn't get the agenda until they walked into this room and picked up an agenda. That's how it used to be. Now, I implemented this along with board support, but it was my initiation to create an agenda system, electronic, that offers this opportunity, and it's done a wonderful job serving the public, and it's incredibly transparent. So I would argue that Clinton Township is very transparent in terms of what it offers its residents. It's fully accessible. There has never been a time that I've ever heard of, not only for me, I already attested that I've never had it happen, but I've never heard another board member say they would not answer any questions from a resident. They're very attentive, and to accuse somebody of not being that is not accurate. I think the problem is that the accusations that have been made already this morning, or at the beginning of this meeting tonight, is that we have to do more. But what have you done? You know,
Ms. Meltzer,
you could
let's
have. All right,
Ms.
but you
Meltzer,
could
let's
have
try not to
shown-
debate the
he could-
issue.
you're right,
Let's do
you're
the
right.
presentation
He could
under a
have
public
shown
service
this-
announcement.
He could have shown this to the residents himself, but he doesn't know how to because he's not doing his due diligence.
Whoa,
in my
whoa,
opinion.
whoa. Ms. Meltzer.
Out of bounds.
Swinging.
Ms. Meltzer,
Listen,
please.
I represent the people, okay? And the people want the background information. We should get it at the same time we receive it. They should receive it.
Yeah, that doesn't
No
work
one
that
can.
way.
Yeah, everybody gets the agenda. We get that. We want the background information.
No,
That's
you're
what
the
they
only one
want
saying
in
that.
a reasonable amount of time.
Order.
You gonna kick me out, Paul? Because
No,
she can make
I'm
personal
calling-
accusations.
I'm
I'm sitting here just
calling
saying
for
that I
order.
represent the people.
I'm calling for
We
order.
represent them.
We will be debating this issue in board rules, I'm sure. So, I asked her to curtail her comments, to be in conformance with our rules, and I'm asking every member of the board to do the same. The way that this works is she was recognized for the purposes of a public service announcement. I think you heard the reaction from both the crowd and from us that may have gone too far. But that doesn't mean that we're just going to open up the floor and everyone's going to yell at each other. I think we need to make sure that we operate with a system of decorum and that we do so in conformance with the rules as well.
I'm open to that. So we get
Okay.
these board rules cooking, that'd be great.
Okay, so, thank you. And this is almost gonna fall off, but it's not gonna careen in the audience, I promise you.
Sam, hide.
If we could move on to item number 1, the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion? Roll call?
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 2, recommendation to approve meter replacement policy.
Dear Honorable Board of Trustees, on February 4th, 2025, the Budget Ways and Means Committee met with the Director of Public Works, Mary Bednar, and the Assistant Superintendent of Water and Sewer, Joe Tresick, to discuss the need for meter replacement policy. During the discussion, Ms. Bednar and Joe Tresick shared the need to replace the aged water meters in the township. When meters age, they do not read usage efficiently, becoming susceptible to under-registering usage. When that happens, it is a cost to the township and can result in an increase in water rates for all users. Meters typically last 15 to 20 years per AWWA standards. Water and Sewer has been working towards replacing aged meters for approximately 10 years and would like to change their approach and focus on replacing meters that were installed in the 1980s and 1990s. The meter replacement policy is included in the packet for your review. As a result, the committee voted unanimously to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the meter replacement policy. The policy is to commence upon approval. Please contact Mary Bednar, Joe Tresick, or myself for further information or questions concerning this recommendation. Respectfully, Julie Matuzak, trustee for the chair, as chair of the Budget Ways and Means Committee.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Bednar for anything additional that she believes the board needs to know in
So
this case.
the biggest change or the change that we're asking is these people that have the meters that are in the 1980s and 90s, being that your meter typically lasts 15 to 20 years, they're obviously now more in the 40 years category. We want to be able to notify them numerous times. I believe it's 4 times. And if they do not respond, then to schedule a shut-off so that they will basically need to respond so that we can get in. As soon as we get that meter and it goes back in, our purpose would be to be able to have someone reply immediately so that they're not without water too long. But that's the only way we're going to be able to get some of these people's attention. So the ordinance is already in place to be able to do this. It's just that there's been a policy in place that said we're not shutting off residential water. But it would only be after we've notified them 4 different times that we would get to that point. Hopefully that we don't get to that point, but that's kind of the intent. And just to clarify, water meters that are in homes are a township asset. They belong to the township. So it's not any different than our lift stations that we have or our water tower. It's part of our water system. It is part of our asset. It is our responsibility. And that's why the ordinance is written that way. And other communities have the same thing. In fact, most communities don't wait. I'm proposing 4-time notification before we do this. A lot of communities won't do that. They do it much quicker because it is important to have accurate meters.
So, I'll go ahead, trustee Kress.
How many households are we talking about? Approximately.
The houses in the 80s and in the 90s, we're looking at approximately 7,500 homes.
Is that entering the homes and doing this work, is that within the budget, or is this gonna mandate some overtime?
We'll probably, if we have to go into the homes after hours because of shutting off the water, they usually are scheduled during the day and not over overtime, but we may have to have overtime if we do end up shutting the water off. But like I said, that would be a last-ditch effort, but we would plan on doing it with our duty man, who is a 24/7 operation. But we usually have 2 people that go in for safety of the residents, but also safety of our employees.
So do you see this costing us extra monies to access all these homes?
Well, it wouldn't be, hopefully, when they get their notices, and after the 3rd notice, and we say, hey, we could shut off your water, they're going to contact us, and we're going to get into their home during regular business hours, which we already currently are doing and have been doing for about 10 years.
Now, any of the notifications, are they certified mail?
No, they are actually what we call door hangers. We put them on front doors, but we could send a letter as well, if that's what the board would want us to do.
Okay, all right. Shutting off the water, currently we do not do that
As far
for non-payment.
For residents.
well, this isn't this is for non-payment. We do not shut off water unless you're one of the affidavit people, which we have a handful of, and by law we have to do. But no, we would roll, if people for non-payment get rolled to their taxes if they don't pay. But this isn't for non-payment. This is for having a meter that is aged out and we need to replace so that we can continue to have up in current assets in the system.
Would it be possible to put a certified mail in our process so that, a kid coming home from school or a renter or something doesn't take it off the door or discard it as, non-threatening?
What I would do is we could add that. Basically, we have 3, if you look at, I believe, the last page of your packet, what I would do is when we put the first pink card up, we could send a certified letter at that point. The second pink card is we will actually put the exact date, because that's the other thing is I want people to know, we're not going to do it on a Monday, we're not going to do it on a Friday so that they're panicked for the weekend, type idea. So I would say we could add that letter in that 4th step to say a pink card and then the certified letter.
Okay. If I could ask through the chair, to Jack, Mr. Dolan, how does this affect our citizens' Fourth Amendment rights entering the home? Is there a state statute that where we can go in somebody's home, force our
Well,
way
we're
in?
asking for consent here to enter.
in the sense that we're requesting the consent of the property owner or tenant who has authority to allow entry to enter. And if that entry is not, that consent isn't provided, then one of the remedies that our ordinance has and others like Sterling Heights and Macomb Township also have is to discontinue service, because obviously you have to have a working meter for the water to be appropriately billed and charged.
Through the chair to Mary. I don't see it in this packet, but I remember there being some verbiage about inspecting the water system. Is that something that we're gonna do? Is it just a meter exchange, or is there going to be a inspection, a spot inspection of the water system?
So if we are in a home that we need to verify we have the lead copper rules that we have to follow. While we're in there, we would verify what is on that side coming into the meter, because by law, we have to do that. But that's the extent of the inspection, would be to see what type of pipe is coming in so that we could put that into our records.
Now, are we gonna disclose that there's gonna be, not only we changing your meter, but we're gonna inspect your household plumbing? Is that?
We're only expecting the pipe coming into the meter. We're not walking through your home. We're not walking under your basement. We're literally the pipe that's right there. When you take the meter out, it's the pipe that comes in. So it's not really even an inspection. It's just a note of what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is a big step for us, right? Because we don't shut residential ratepayers' water off. That has always been our rule. If people do not pay their water bills, it gets added to the taxes. But this is something that is necessary to maintain the system. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so most people are, in a sense, hey, yes, we understand, this is part of the process. We have to allow access so we can change this meter out. But this is for specifically those people who have ignored previous notices.
Correct.
Has
And we're
not,
gonna
has been non-responsive, in other words.
And we'll start over. Some of these people have already received notices and stuff. We're gonna start over. We're gonna give them a clean slate and say, we need to get in today, type idea. And as long as they call and schedule an appointment, then at that point, they're on the books to get an appointment, we're going in, we're gonna, at that point, we don't shut their water off. We just need the appointment scheduled and have our people get in and take care of it during the workday, hopefully.
Okay. So when we're providing water to our residents, we're providing that water that's provided to us through the Great Lakes Water Authority, right? And then running that through our system. And so we're charged for that water that is metered to us, but then also to the residents. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so if that meter is malfunctioning or is old, there's a greater likelihood that it's going to malfunction.
Correct. Typically, they slow down. So we try to look at, we have 5 meters that come into the township from Great Lakes Water Authority. And so we look at what we're buying and and basically what we're selling.
Okay. And so if that meter is malfunctioning, then it's likely that the bill's not accurate.
Correct.
And that means if it's lower, then that means that the rest of us as ratepayers are paying for the amount that somebody else is utilizing but not paying for it.
Correct. It affects the whole system.
So this is a system-wide thing that is necessary to be done, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that people have access to the water they need. It's a public utility, but at the same time, there's certain requirements to it.
Yep.
And it's a partnership between us and the ratepayers.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any, Trustee Wade?
Obviously, some people don't want you to come into their house. We all know that. In the event, and I just had to have my sub pump, the backup, come out and inspected by a company. And the township sent me a list of plumbers that they acknowledge. If somebody wanted to hire one of those companies to install the meter, as opposed to having the township come in, is that an option?
No, because it's actually our meter, the township meter. So when a new house gets built, people come in, they pay for their meter fees and so forth, and we give them what's called a template. So the plumber plumbs it, they put the template in, and then the water department comes, removes the template and puts the meter in. But we put the meter in as our asset.
Okay.
Just one more question. If we do get in to get the work done that is necessary, we're going to be turning the water back on as soon as we possibly can. Is that correct?
Correct.
Our goal is to make sure we do that. What would be the average time length that
So
would likely take?
if we were having, people not responding and we had to turn their water off, like I mentioned, we do have a 24/7 duty man. As soon as the person gets the call, my goal would be to have them already have everything in the truck, because we know we've done this, so we're waiting for the call, basically. We would turn around and try to get out there within an hour or two. And it typically, Joe, about an hour to replace it?
Yeah, if you don't run into any
Joe,
situation-
Joe, I think we need to have you step up to the mic. Joe Tresick, Joe, state your position.
Yeah, I'm the assistant superintendent with Clinton Township Water. And to speak to your point, Mary, that if the water was already off, it's actually an easier fix to get back on, because we're not trying to mess with valves or stop boxes. They can come in, change the meter, and turn the water back on. So that could be, 30 minutes to an hour, but depending on the call and how long they get there.
And this is different than the inspection issue that needs to take place. Oftentimes, there's backflow preventers to make sure that any type of, a backup meter or a sprinkler system doesn't backflow possibly dirty water back into clean water.
Right.
That's the inspection, but
No.
this is not related to that at
That can
all.
be an inspection with the cross connection, like Trustee Wade was saying, that or with a backup sump, or that's a different thing that we do inspect on, and depending on the danger assessment or risk assessment. But one of the things why we go in the house too when we turn it on is if it's turned off and say somebody messed with a valve or did anything, that we want to see that the water's not leaking either before we leave. We want to make sure that, so there's not an inspection, but we check out the meter to make sure everything's sealed and in correct working order anyways.
All right, further questions from the board?
Just
Okay.
Just wondering about
Clerk
process.
Meltzer.
How, do you go in with is there more than one person that goes into the household, or is it just one?
So typically, when a meter appointment is made, it's one tech, just like a Comcast or any other utility. But there's circumstances that if there need be, they can be more or less, I mean, depending on the nature of it. Sometimes environments aren't the most, I wouldn't say hostile, but sometimes you want to have somebody there. I mean, we don't turn off water for residential, so it's not that kind of aspect. But when we do our commercial turnoffs, there's two that do the knocks and that.
So my advice would be, in this case, because we physically shut off the water, we would have two people.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Makes sense.
So no more discussion from the board. Members of the public, I have Mr. Duggar first, and then Mr. Bouchel.
Good evening, Board. Dana Duggar, 37852 Suburban, from the best neighborhood in this township. A couple of items I'd like to bring forth.
Related to this agenda.
You got it.
item.
You
Okay.
got it, Mr. Supervisor. You say 7,500 meters. Do we already own these meters, or will we be buying them piecemeal? Question number one. Question number two, the meters you will be removing, is there a core value in them that we're sending them back to a manufacturer? Are we gathering them up? Brass and bronze are pretty expensive. Are we scrapping that out and enriching the township's trophers? And last but not least, we're looking at piping here that is 40, 50 years old. Some of these homes, those gate valves may not have been turned in 40 or 50 years. So when you get a stem that twists off or something, what is the process there, and who pays for it if we need to change the valve on the street side, which you would then have to hit the stop box out at the main, shut that off so you could change the valve on the street side, but also on the user side, perhaps speaking to that a little bit and letting people know what costs they would incur if they're 50-year-old meters getting replaced and, oh goodness, the valves are scrap. What do we do now? So that would be my question. Thank you so
I
very much.
appreciate that, Mr. Duggar, and I appreciate the questions. I'm going to defer to Ms. Bednar, kind of 3 questions.
Yep, and I'm going to tag team with Mr. Tresick. So we'll go back and forth. The first question was, you know what, I've already forgot the first question. I
The
apologize.
first question was,
Do we own the meters?
Yes,
Yes.
so the meters that are in people's homes currently, we already own. And no, I do not have 7,500 meters sitting in my shop. That's why, you know, but I do have as Ms. Hine could verify, we do have quite a few, and we tend to we buy them in bulk to get a better price. And we tend to, you know, we watch to see, like, if they'll tell us, hey, meters are going up in price, so we might buy a bunch to try to save the community and the ratepayers the money. So that's the first question. The second.
And since I recently toured the water and sewer department, I'll add that you scrapped the old meters.
Well, that's the second question, is the old meters, we tear apart basically, and we scrap what we can and get money for them and so forth. So we're right on the same page, Mr. Duggar, as far as scrapping what we can and, you know, salvaging what we can type idea. And then the last question is regarding the actual shut-off
The
valve.
shut-off valves. So, like Mr. Duggar suggested, that some of these pipes are 40 years old, 50 years old, and the inlet and the outlet valves are the responsibility of the homeowners. So in saying that, you can come into a house that has 40-year-old pipes, but it has a brand-new ball valve, and you're fairly confident you can turn that off and not break it. So a lot of times, if it's questionable, then our techs will go to the street that's publicly owned by Clinton Township and turn it off there. So if there's something that the valves do look like they're in bad condition, we won't even consider touching those, just to avoid that situation. Not saying that the situation hasn't happened or if a good valve can break a stem or not, but typically, yeah, if there's an older house, the ideal would be to turn it off to the street and you take away any of the stems, so that those scenarios happen all the time. And we are, like Mary said, we are currently in a meter replacement. So this happens, we've replaced a couple thousand meters in the last 10 years. This is just trying to get a better response from the age meters. And Mr. Duggar said 7,500. That number is, I think, older than 2004 off the top of my head from that. What we wanted to focus on is the 1980s specifically in this new.
Which is
about
782.
of them. And that would be doable in a year
Yeah.
with how many we have on the shelves.
Thank you, Mr. Tresick. Mr. Buchel.
Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland. I would say that the certified letter is a very good idea because there again, going back to when Consumer Energy, one of the more vocal neighbors, the mail was chewed up because it wasn't certified. And I didn't get it until a month after the Planning Commission had gone through. And I think so it's important if you're going to shut off people's water. And there again, my meter has already been changed. Ms. Bednar can confirm I have no problem with people coming in the house. So it's a matter of, I'm just saying for other people that this may come up for, the certified letter seems to be a logical last step. So thank you.
I'm going to defer back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Gilham, real quick.
And in the motion, we can deal with the issue of certified letters and talk about the budget implications of that. Ms. Bednar.
As far as the certified letter, it probably would make more sense to put it in the 5th step when we're actually giving a date, so that the date is there and they're getting a letter saying, on this date, we will be doing this. I said the 4th step, but as Mr. Buchel just pointed out, I went, you know what, maybe it makes more sense to be in the 5th step.
Is the certified mail addition to this going to increase cost to the level of any type of budget amendment that might be required?
I don't believe so, but, you know, it really depends. If we end up having to send out 800 of these, hopefully we don't get that point, right? But we usually have enough in our postage and so forth. I think we'll be okay. But if it isn't, we can bring it back to the board and let them know.
I'd like to entertain a motion, if somebody wants to make it.
I would make a motion that we adopt the, what are we calling it? The water shut-off, the meter replacement water shut-off new
Program?
policy. Program.
Yes.
Looking for the right word.
Okay. With the addition of a certified letter at the notice to be determined by the Water Department?
That would be perfect.
Okay. Are we good with that motion, Madam Clerk?
Yep.
Okay, do we have a support?
I support.
Okay, supported by Treasurer Aiello. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Matuzak.
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello.
Yes.
Trustee Wade.
Yes.
Trustee Kress.
No.
Supervisor Gilliam.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Okay. That brings us to request approval to begin the renewal process of the police operating millage.
Dear
Item
honorable
number
board
3.
members, I respectfully request your support as our police department's operating millage will soon expire. I'd like to share the background as to the history and success of the police operating millage. The voters approved the request for 1.5 operating mills, which passed the election in 2006 for a duration of 20 years to expire in 2026. Voters approved an additional 1.0 operating mill in 2013 for a duration of 7 years. In 2018, the 1.0 operating mill was renewed for an additional 6 years to expire in 2026. Therefore, I'm requesting board approval to begin the process of renewing the police operating millages set to expire in 2026 for a period of 10 years. The operating millage combined is 2.5 mills, as rolled back by Headley currently to 2.392 mills. This operating millage accounts for 1/3 of the entire police budget and is therefore critical to maintain the level of police services dedicated to public safety. The average taxable value for residents in Clinton Township is $87,000. Therefore, the tax for this operating millage would be, on average, $208 per house per year, or $17.33 per month. I am also requesting approval to retain the firm Miller, Canfield, Paddock, and Stone with regard to ballot language as it pertains to the operating millage. It is our intent to have this millage language on the ballot for August 2025. Respectfully submitted, Dina Karinji, Chief of Police.
Okay, so we have Chief, I don't know if you wanted to speak to this, or Captain Susala, or Ms. Hine. We got finance, we got our police department. Looks like Captain Susala is on his way, as well as the chief. Let me just make sure I clarify this while you two are folks are coming to the podium. It is the intention of the department to keep this at the Headley rate, not a Headley override. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Anything you guys wanted to add to the letter? Let me do this. So I remember first coming to this board as one of the trustees.
Yeah.
And when I did so, I think the police department was down to maybe about like 75 to 80 officers from a high point of 112. And I remember at that time, because this was coming out of the 2008 crisis.
Yes.
And one of the things that we did when this millage was proposed to the public in the first place is we said, we don't think we can ever get back to that 112. But we think if the voters are to approve that additional 1 mill, now of course being combined with the previous one that had been done, other than what the board authorizes, we could get to a level of 93. And we think that while that is not ideal, we think that that gets us to a level that is more manageable for a community of our size. Voters stepped up and approved that. And so this would be a renewal of that millage. We are no longer at 93, we are at 95, I believe?
We are at 95.
Now, that includes some school liaison officers, right?
That is specifically the 2 school liaison officers. We had
Yeah.
come to the board requesting 2 additional officers, one for Clintondale school resource officers and an additional one for Chippewa Valley. So
And that's a match program, is it
What's
not?
that?
And that's a match program, is it not?
Correct.
The schools
school
actually
pays
incur some of the
50%
cost of that.
And we pay 50%, so,
Okay,
yes.
okay. With that, members of the board, Mr. Kress. Trustee Kress.
Question, we never got any feedback on those traffic cameras that the board had approved. Is that something we're looking to as a cost savings, or are we gonna go back to vehicles and people on the street? Because
I'm sorry? The
the
camera?
traffic cameras, remember we forewent buying 2 new
flat
squad
cameras?
cars for traffic cameras.
I think what Mr. Kress is referring to is that there was a proposal put forward by the police department, went to Budget Ways and Means, and you forgoed the purchase of a couple of vehicles in order to put that money into the purchase of flock cameras. And part of that discussion was, yeah, it would be ideal to have the 112 sworn officers, but we don't think we're going to be able to get to that. And we believe that utilizing technology is an assist to the work that police have to do in our community.
Yes,
And so
that was.
I think his question is related to that.
Yeah, I'd like to see cars and officers on the street rather than,
Well, that's an
Big Brother
investigative
cameras.
tool. Flat cameras are an investigative tool. They're not to be used in lieu of officers on the street.
Okay, well, we forewent purchase of 2 cars, so,
Well, those were 2 cars for our special investigations unit,
okay.
not
I
operations.
guess I'm asking, are we done buying cameras for the moment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good on cameras?
Yes.
And in the motion, we can put this 2.3 mils, so that the Headley adjusted amount, correct?
There's 3 places to it, Paul.
Yeah, I think this will still have to come back to the board once the language is
Okay.
drafted.
All right.
And I think that would be the appropriate time to confirm that it does meet the intent of what the board has stated here
Okay,
tonight.
all right, thank you very much.
Yeah, our concern is to maintain the services that we have now. We're not looking to increase the millage as stated in the letter. And in talking to Ms. Hine and gaining a little bit of background and knowledge into how, all of this work in our funding, this particular millage accounts for 1/3 of our entire budget.
Okay.
Which would be devastating to the police department if
Yeah,
we didn't have an
I-
opportunity to go to the voters.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was alarmed that we got the cameras. I voted against the cameras the first time around, and I was hoping we're not gonna continue going down that road. We'd have boots on the
Correct.
ground, so to speak, or cars on the road, so.
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is probably not the time to ask that, but, thank you
Okay.
for your answer.
Thanks.
Ms. Hine?
Oh, in case you had a question, was talking, this is coming back, like you had said. That's what I was coming up for. This is just to start the process. And then we will get the language written, and it comes back to the board for a resolution to be adopted, for it to be on the ballot.
Thank you.
All right, further discussion from the board? Members of the public?
I would,
Trustee Wade?
yes, just
Former
real
chief.
quick, yes, and I probably am giving a slanted opinion, but I really hope we all go out in the community and promote this, because one of the reasons people come to Clinton Township is for our fire department and our police department, and I think we're held in very high regard,
Yes.
and I hope we can all support them and keep it going.
Is that?
Thank you.
Is that a motion being added on to that, Trustee Wade?
Sure.
And I'll support it.
Okay, moved by Trustee Wade, supported by Trustee Matuzak. As presented, correct?
As presented. And I
Okay.
think it's really important that we are holding it to the Headley. We're not trying to override the Headley. I think that's really important.
Okay, any further discussion on the agenda item? Roll call, please.
Did we get public comment or no?
I did call for public
You did.
comment, did
I'm
not
sorry.
see any hands.
Okay. Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
that brings us to item number 4, request approval. You guys might not want to go anywhere. Request
I was like,
approval
what are
to
you doing?
subcontract with Care of Southeast Michigan for the Police Social Worker Grant Program.
Kim, do you want to read this letter, this whole letter? or-
Well, you know, it's really up to you guys. If you want to do the presentation, please do. Feel free to do so.
Well, it's a lengthy letter. If I could just kind of explain a little bit. This social worker grant came to us at a time, I think, where there was a transitional time between Chief Pospis had passed away, Chief Wade was there, and then I was sworn in shortly after that, and there was a Trustee Cardamone at the time had pitched to the board to do a feasibility study using some of the CDBG
funds.
CDBG. Community
Federal
Community
block grant
Block
dollars.
Grant Fund. And which was approved. And so company came in, did a study, submitted that back to the board. And then we really didn't hear too much about it with everything going on at the police department at the time. We didn't realize that a grant had been applied for officially. So we got that information shortly after I was sworn in, and obviously a priority of mine was accreditation. So that took priority when we were made aware of this grant, and it was substantial. It was a $675,000 grant that was awarded to go towards this police social worker program. So we're now able to shift our attention to it, having been officially accredited back in September, which we were very proud to do that. So looking back at the study, just to kind of summarize it, they had made a couple of recommendations. One that we thought would work best for us was to subcontract with an organization in the community that does this work. And the study recommended the Macomb Health and Human Services Division and/or Care of Southeast Michigan. So in meeting with the grant committee, we agreed to reach out to both those organizations to set up interviews, which we did. Both gave great presentations. For our purposes, we talked. And we agreed that we liked what CARE had to offer. They came in with a detailed budget as to how they saw the money being utilized. In addition, with some just other great ideas. So our recommendation is to get the ball rolling, so to speak, with the social worker grant, because we are behind a year. In talking to Matt Wallace, he reached out to the Department of Justice, who oversees this grant, and indicated we could get a year extension, which was not a problem, and the subcontracting too would be appropriate. So our request tonight would be to have you request approval to subcontract with Care of Southeast Michigan to begin the social worker program within the police department.
And this is something that we went through the grant committee process.
Yes.
Prior to coming to the board.
And this is based on the recommendation.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I could, chiefs, I guess, because,
Chief-elect.
Chief-elect. So to both of you, give us a sense as to how the program's going to work, kind of on a day-to-day basis. You encounter situations on a daily basis that I think in many cases you're like, oh, this is sad, this is hopeless, this is more, we can do law enforcement, but we can't solve some of the underlying issues that are causing us to have to return to the same address, and so I think that's kind of both the impetus, but also the program design as well.
Well, there's a lot of.
But you guys can speak to it better than I
Yes,
can.
there is a much needed resource that we would utilize with the social worker. This person would be assigned essentially like a school resource officer, right? School resource officers are dedicated to that school to deal with any and all issues that may arise. So the social worker would be a resource-based position for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, Mental health is a big concern. Mental health needs, social problems, assist with housing or food insecurities. There are many aspects in the social service world that police officers, we only know what's available on the surface. And even Macomb County Health and Human Services, when they were there, there's so many programs that are available to the community, to people. We as police officers don't have a clue as to how many are out there. There are so many. This person can also help somebody navigate, get partnered up with that service that they may need. And the other thing that's difficult for us to do a lot is the follow-up, right? This person would be in the position to follow up with these individuals to make sure that they're continuing on the right track, that they got in touch with somebody. So I think there's a lot there that this position is going to be able to provide.
So there's probably a lot of people that don't want the help. But for those that do, it's going to be the referral process. And then it's going to be that follow-up process to say, hey, these are some of the resources that are available to you, and here's a good way to be able to access them. And
Well, they may not want
kinda-
the resources that we're aware of that are out there, but there are more.
Yeah.
So this social worker can really work with somebody to tailor resources that are right for that individual. And I think that that's something that we can tap into with this grant.
I want to give a big shout out to former trustee Cardamone, who is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's the person who first brought this issue forward. And the accreditation process was all-encompassing.
Yes, it was.
But you guys had this next up on the agenda, and we very much appreciated bringing it forward. And we think it'll be a innovative approach and one that will lend value to the police officers and our community as well.
So CARE is here. Susan is the director of CARE, and she is here tonight. We've worked with Susan. She does our AAP through CARE and our critical stress debriefings for our officers as well. And there's an aspect, too, of this partnership, I think, that's appropriate, is people are familiar with her. She's come into the station. Our officers are aware. I think they would trust that social worker working with CARE coming into the station. And I think that's already, we're ahead of the game a little bit there too. And she does tremendous work, and she's passionate about what she does, and I believe this is gonna be a successful program. And we're able to even request a continuance of this grant when we're at the end of it to maybe possibly even continue it. So I don't know if
We'd greatly like to hear from CARE on this.
So we're very excited that we were selected to do this work. I think when we talk about mental health and behavioral health services for the community, what that means is we really need to be embedded with our community partners. And the first responders are really the people that are going to homes and are aware of what's going on. And we know in our world, in the mental health world, that the police do so much work for us up front as well as the fire. And so this is a nice way for us to really make sure that we're connecting with the community members and we're really supporting them in their homes. We know that we want kids to stay in their homes with their parents. We want to reduce referrals to CPS when all possible. We also know that you can hand somebody a card, but that's not really often the barrier to know where to go. Really what the barrier becomes is somebody's fear of reaching out and going that, or not sure what to do, or they maybe get a voicemail that day trying to access services, and then they become not motivated to call. And what this can really do is that extra oomph to really support the community and get people connected to the services they need. Our goal is always to reduce recidivism of these return calls to home, so we think it has a tremendous value to the community.
Questions from the board? I saw trustee Kress and trustee Matusek.
We're contracting through CARE, correct? That's you?
Yes,
Do you already have someone, or would this be a new hire?
this is a new hire.
Okay. It says that it's $68,000, $400 salary, and it says 20,000 fringe benefits. What does that 20,000 fringe benefits entail?
That's going to be health insurance, life insurance, all of the benefits that an employee has with the position that's there.
Okay. Will the new hire, will they be made aware that this is something that's only forecast through 2028? Or is it something that if we don't get another grant, that's going to be, it's going to be a burden on our financial situation to keep the person employed? Is that going to be the understanding that they're being hired through 2028?
Well, the grant is through 2028. This is our employee, which may not end at 2028. So I can't predict
Okay.
what will happen at
All right,
2028.
but we don't have any obligation for this employee?
You do not, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Trustee Matuzak.
I'm very excited that this has finally got worked out. It's been a long time coming. The idea of the police social worker connection obviously came about because of a number of tragic incidences around the country. Probably most famously George Floyd and what happens, and a number of tragic incidents where police encountered folks who were mentally ill or intellectually disabled in some way. And so this whole movement, I think, has been really good both for the police and for the community. And I'm really glad that we have finally got this off the ground. And I think it will be a benefit all the way around. This is a great use of a good community resource. CARE does amazing work. Our police department is amazing. And with the accreditation process, we've really upped everybody's skills. And I think this is going to just make us even more effective in the community. I'm very pleased that we're doing this. So I'm happy to make a motion to, I don't know what the motion is.
Approve the subcontract.
Is the motion to accept the grant? Is the motion to contract?
We've already accepted the grant. It's
Okay.
to approve the contract and
Approve the program and contract as presented.
There we go. I'm moving the program and contract as presented.
And we need a
Terrific.
support for that?
I'll second. Support.
Okay, supported by Treasurer Aiello. And further discussion from board members? Questions? Okay, members of the public. Mr. Duggar.
Yeah, just one quick question to the board. I see there is an allotment for on-call. I just want to know that this social worker will be available 24/7, that when our officers run into a terrible situation with a family or something, will not be the social worker will get with you tomorrow. It's, hey, social worker, I need you over here on X Street now, and the social worker will be available for those on-call immediate interventions where they can be a physical presence and start the ball immediately, not a tomorrow or we'll get back with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duggar. I'm going to
point.
defer to Chief Karingi on that because I don't think the plan design is to have them
So-
on scene.
No, not
I
not
think there's
initially.
certain
Initially, we need
danger
to get the
elements to
social
that.
worker hired and in the door, as that referral-based resource. 24/7 availability is through a county resource, is a mobile crisis unit. So our officers have the ability to reach out for mental health services 24/7 through county services as it is.
This is more referral and follow-up.
This is referral,
and,
follow-up, and-
trying to help people get to the services that might be available, but they don't know how to access or fear accessing.
That's correct.
Okay. A roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Did you have something?
Oh, Treasurer Aiello, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Well, thank you to CARE for being here, and
Thank you very
our
much.
department, thank you for bringing this forward. That brings us to item number 5, disposition of the emergency management duties.
And Supervisor Gilliam, can we, are the police going to stay here? Are you going to stay? Yeah. I think I have a question for you on this as well. Go ahead. Did you want me to read this, or are you doing it?
No,
Let's-
Yeah.
it's a pretty long memo.
Yeah.
Okay.
As you guys know, that towns over 25,000.
Deputy Supervisor O'Leary.
Deputy Supervisor O'Leary. Towns over 25,000 people have to have either an emergency manager or they have to contract with their county. That's the law. We have, for the last umpteen years, had our own internal emergency manager. It was a part-time employee, a retired fire person. Paul Brower has retired after 50 years of service. And so it gave us a chance to step back and say, okay, what do we need going forward? Mr. Gillingham has met with county emergency management, explored some options, and truth is that out of 27 or so towns here in the county, only 2 have their own emergency manager. That's us and Warren. And so, we started asking why and what the benefit of joining the club would be. And the truth is, it's just, this is a regional issue, right? If you have flooding, it's going to impact more than just us. It's going to impact our neighbors. If you have a plane crash from Selfridge, chances are it could impact more than just Clinton Township. Tornadoes will impact more than Clinton Township. So a coordinated response makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So working with the county as our emergency manager kind of makes some sense. They have 27 people on staff. We had a part-time person. And so that's a lot of resources to tap and a lot of people with a lot of different specialties and expertise, and they can advise us. So, we're recommending to you that you consider abandoning the approach of having our own person in-house, join the county emergency management team, and it wouldn't be without representation here locally. We still have our 2 departments and our 2 chiefs, but we would also name 2 people liaison, Tyler Ang, who's a police officer and an experienced emergency manager, and our own Chief Gallagher have volunteered to be the 2 representatives who would be liaisons to the county, so that we still have a local presence here who will communicate with them and make sure we know, how things work and all that. One of the biggest jobs that an emergency manager does is develop an emergency management plan. What's your plan in the event of a flood, an airplane strike, and all that? Who has what responsibility? Who's bringing in cots and making beds in the gym for people to sleep in if houses are unlivable and all that? So that emergency plan development has to be refreshed every few years, and the county would advise us on that and assist us with that instead of us being on our own. So makes a lot of sense, safety in numbers, joining them, and, it would save us 40 grand or so a year in the part-time wages. So our recommendation to you is to do this. If you choose to do it, there's a couple of things you would do. Number one, you would approve the resolution that's in your package, authorizing the county to be our emergency manager. Number 2, you would approve the resolution that Jack has prepared that would...
It's actually an ordinance.
An ordinance that Jack would prepare that undoes the old ordinance on the emergency manager, correct?
Correct. Basically, what we really have is a sort of a step-by-step process, and it was accurately indicated that one of the first things we're going to do is adopt the resolution agreement, which is part of your package. Subsequent to our approval, that will then go to the county. The county, upon approval of that, will in turn allow us to finally adopt the ordinance that we're presenting tonight to repeal our own emergency manager ordinance, which, of course, as everybody knows, by ordinance, we have to do an introduction and at a subsequent meeting in adoption. So we go tonight, approve the resolution and agreement, introduce the ordinance. And we wait for the next step, the county to approve, and then finally we come back with the final step being the adoption of the repealing ordinance.
And you would also name those 2 liaisons to be the liaisons for us. And then you would authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement with the county and to issue the letter with the state saying we've taken this action. So it's laid out in the memo. Those are the things we're being asked to do to make this work. I did ask the county emergency manager, Brandon Lewis, to join us in case you have questions about their operation, and he's happy to help.
Mr. Lewis, come on forward if you can, because I can tell you that I was impressed. I think we're tapping into a whole range of services that have always been available to us, but we may not have fully utilized. And so I'd like you to speak to kind of how this works for local communities that currently contract with you.
Sure. As Deputy Supervisor O'Leary said, we are the emergency management program for every community in Macomb County except for Clinton Township and Warren at this point. We have a very robust program in terms of population served. We are the 4th largest program in the state, and so we have quite a few resources. We're the coordinating entity for the county hazmat team, which Clinton Township is a founding member of. We are the coordinating entity for the county's technical rescue team, which Clinton Township is a founding member of. We have had a great working relationship with Clinton Township for years, and I think this is going to strengthen that working relationship while giving you access to some of those resources in even greater detail and allowing you to tap into some of the other programs that we have. We have fairly robust programs in terms of collaboration, working with the state, working with regional partners. So it's not just Macomb County. We work quite a bit with all of Southeast Michigan, and we've established a lot of relationships there, so it would kind of strengthen Clinton Township's relationships with those more regional partners as well. I see a lot of benefit to this relationship going both ways.
Questions from the board?
Right here.
Treasurer Kress, or excuse me, Trustee Kress.
Mr. O'Leary, currently we use Nixle, correct?
Yes.
Who has the authority to activate that now?
The emergency manager, the communications director, and myself.
Okay. And would we be keeping the Nixle system as redundancy to the county, or would we be abandoning it?
It's really a budget issue. In all honesty, a year ago, there was a great debate as to whether or not to keep it, because we have 101,000 people in this town, and after several years of trying to get people to sign up through various flyers and flag ads on TV and stuff, we only have 4,000 people signed up. So you start questioning whether that's the approach that works versus other social media approaches. We have used it in the past, generally for large water main leaks that impact more than just one neighborhood. There's some protocol on that. Generally not for fires, but for things that have a township-wide impact, it's generally used. And could still be used, but unfortunately, you're only impacting about 4,000 people. It's just the nature of the beast. So I guess the board, when we do our budget this year, needs to make the decision, is that enough of an impact where you say, well, it's worth the $5 or $8 grand a year we're paying for it? That's the question you have to ask yourself. The county does have its own emergency system that it can use. It is extraordinary, but it's also something that has to be used very sparingly, right? Because one of the worst things you do with an emergency system is overuse it, and then people tune it out. You ever get the Amber Alerts at 3 o'clock in the morning, and people have figured out sometimes how to turn those off. I wish they wouldn't. You don't want them doing that with the county system. But it's an extraordinary system where it's not sign-up based like ours is. They can hit a phone if it's in a certain circle. They draw the circle. They say if someone drives into that circle, their phone will ping with the emergency warning. It's an excellent approach, but it is not something to be viewed as, hey, we got a water main leak, we're going to use that. No, that's not how it works. This has to be something that, one, there's a life-threatening situation, and two, there's an action that we need people to take, and it's got to be a widespread situation. That's when the county will use it, so it's very sparingly done and should be. But we've got our other social media approaches if you choose to not spend the $8 grand, or we can investigate something else.
Can I ask the gentleman from the county a question? With our Nixle system, Chief Wade over here at the end, he used to have an app on his phone. So let's say there was a fatal accident at 15 and Harper or something like that. He could go on his cellular device and he could alert our residents of an incident. Will we have that sort of access to it, or do we have to go through a central location to get something approved?
To the Nixle system, if you
No, to your system.
that has to go through my office.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, because Mr. O'Leary talked about overusing it. So if there's a fatal accident at Harper and 15, is that something you would put out a notification for people to steer around the scene, or is this for catastrophic events?
Catastrophic events.
Okay.
I think that's the demarcation line, right? That's the, spot, local issues versus more severe catastrophic. So I had Ms. Meltzer and then Trustee King.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. Both of you did a great job explaining all that. We have a grant opportunity that's coming our way, and we just found out that some more money opened up, and we may be interested at the next board meeting, which will be a week from today, in making a decision whether or not we want to keep Nixle, and we could possibly not pay for the program, but pay for notice of, to try to get more people involved with the Nixle program. I think it's a good tool, and it is one that would still serve the public, but we want to get more people involved, and by doing that, we need to do some more marketing, more ads, and this opportunity has come up where we can have a grant possibly pay for that, and it would go to every registered voter as well as the homeowners, all homeowners. So I think Nixle is an important part of our complete process if we can get enough people to use it. And then it would take those, so like for instance, what happened at, what is it, the Golden Donut? Was that the Golden Donut? What's the donut place?
Well, there was an
Okay.
incident at the Golden Donut.
So
but-
that would not have triggered your, right, okay, so he said no, he's not at the microphone, but the emergency manager from the county said that would not trigger. But again, and that would be maybe a call for police or fire to want to make that determination, because sometimes people that they know about a problem, they go to that, and instead of, staying away, they go to it. So it would be a good advice possibly to tell people specifically, this is, an event that's taking place, advise them to stay away. So I don't think it's a bad tool for the township, but again, if people aren't going to utilize it, then, it's a lot of money wasted.
I think we're getting a little off topic, but it's
Well, I kinda
relatable,
wanted-
so let's, yeah.
I wanted to let them know that this was coming, and this just came in literally at 5 o'clock tonight about the grant dollars. So I thought it was just to show that there's a opportunity to still utilize Nixle if we want to, and it may not. We may be able to get more marketing opportunities.
Trustee King.
I'd like to ask the county representative a quick question. In relationship to the municipalities that you serve, do you go through some type of reporting methodology as far as a quarterly or annual kind of review of the services or activities that were performed in their area, how things were resolved, things of that nature, like a KPI, QBR kind of feel?
So we actually do regular updates. I wouldn't say it's a formal report where we put it out every year and say this is what we did, but one thing that we do is we're really proactive in meeting with all of our communities. We bring them in quarterly. We discuss everything that's been going on with our program. We seek their input to see how what we're doing is working for the local communities, and we integrate that. So rather than it being a once-a-year updated approach, it's a collaborative approach between us and all of the communities that are part of our program.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Before you go, yep. So what becomes then the responsibility of our liaisons in terms of that process, as well as, continual updating, training, certifications, those types of programs, to make sure we're always prepared to tap into the resources that might be available?
So the best way to think about that is as the county, we set the parameters for what our county emergency management program looks like. Training standards, things like that. And those are generally in alignment with best practices from FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, the state of Michigan, all of the agencies that set forth emergency management standards. So what we do is then those liaisons, and in your case, one from police and one with fire, are essentially our representative within your community, and it's their role within the process to bring back what's coming down from our program to the community and kind of be like our pathway and our gateway to the township to facilitate that discussion back and forth. Because one of the things that I think is really important to recognize is we don't come in as a program and take over what are your local township responsibilities. So the township still runs its police department, runs its fire department, and all of those type of things. And we have the liaison, and they're kind of our representative, and they're the go-between to make sure that information is flowing both ways and that we're having an effective dialogue and communication to make sure that the program is running smoothly and that all of the communities that roll up under our program are being well served.
If I could add to that, there's some things that are very localized that the county wouldn't do. For instance, you might have heard of NIMS training, which are various courses that key personnel in the organization, the public works director and so on, have to take to deal with certain situations. And in order to qualify for federal grants, you have to make sure so much percentage of your organization has that training and so on. The county's not tracking that. That's going to be done by our fire liaison who currently tracks that. We have an internal emergency evacuation plan. You know, this department, hides over here. This department hides over there. This department leaves the building. This department's likely not to make it. We do that internally. That's the way we do it. They don't get involved in that. So there's things like that our local liaisons will handle that will not be done by the county. But they're things it would make sense that we would handle because they're local to us.
By all means.
But if I could just play off of what Mr. O'Leary said, one of the areas where we assist is he mentioned NIMS training and individual departments keeping track of their training records for the National Incident Management System. One of the things we do is we will actually go out and organize a lot of the National Incident Management System training that takes place in Macomb County over the course of the year, and we'll make those opportunities available. So that's where that partnership comes in. So the police department doesn't need to spend a lot of time researching where do I need to go to get NIMS ICS 300 training. We put the class on twice a year. They just need to sign up and show up and keep the records. And in terms of like the building evacuation plans, continuity of operations plans, yes, those are the responsibility of the township, but we also have partnerships with 25 communities in Macomb County, and we make available what those best practices are. We're very transparent in sharing, this worked for the county government or this worked for one of the other local communities. Maybe here are some ideas on how you can do this. So those are a couple of good examples of how being part of the county program, you have access to some other information that as an individual program you may have less access to.
Well, I can tell you that I'm happy to present this because as soon as Mr. Brower retired, I had to sign up to be the emergency manager for the township. And I can firmly tell you that it is a relief if the board approves this tonight, because I think it's very good to have people that are more qualified than me to be the emergency manager for the township. So with that, further questions from the board? Trustee Wade.
Just a couple of things. I'm really glad to have Mr. Lewis on board. He's got a great reputation, and I know the quality of work they do over there. One thing I would kind of like to emphasize, and I did mention it to Chief Gallagher kind of in passing, and I mentioned it to Chief Karenji too. I think we need to really focus in on an emergency alert system for the township, for our residents, because there's always something happening that people need to be made aware of. And the county, it would be too cumbersome for them to be able to put these things out. I'll give you an example. If you had a suspicious person, say, lingering around Chippewa Valley High School, and you thought that person was maybe trying to attempt a pickup of a kid, the school has a great system for contacting all the parents. You get notified right away. But if that person went down the street to Clintondale, they don't know anything about it, because Clintondale's got their own system. So we need something that can hit all the citizens. And Nixle is a good program. Mr. O'Leary is correct. It's hard to get people to sign up for that, but we really need to try to promote that, because there's going to be a time that may be our only way of communication if something really happens. That may be your only lifeline to where to go, what to do, what to watch out for. When I was doing Nixle, we might put a message out every 3 days. You know, there's a fatal accident at 15 in Gratiot, and please stay out of the area. And I know when I'm driving home from work, I like getting that because I know, hey, I'm going to take Groesbeck instead of Gratiot. It's a real convenience. Plus, the police department, it helps them out because they don't have everybody coming down the street rubbernecking it and, you know, blocking up traffic, and then they got to take more resources to direct more traffic. So I really think we need to make a real concerted effort to have a system in place. And I hope both chiefs, I know they will, can kind of get together and really promote a strong program that we can all buy into.
Chief Gallagher, anything to add?
To your point, Mr. Wade, a great idea. We'll certainly be having conversations with the chief and the leadership of the police department to accomplish discussion to that point and see what we can identify as the best practice. And it does think it hammers home the idea of the collaboration for best practices that are out there. And this agreement here would be able to afford us that opportunity. So,
All right, further questions from the board? Questions from the public? Mr. Duggar.
Just a reiteration, Mr. Lewis's team is fantastic. After the East Palestine train derailment of a year or so ago, I was very concerned about the CN corridor that runs past our hospital, past our police department, very concerned. Their meeting is open to the public. I went to their meeting just as Joe citizen, and I asked questions. He and his staff answered those questions, and I was amazed at the details that they have put in place, including such things as, you have a train derailment by the jail, what do? They have a plan to evacuate the jail. And no, it's not just open the doors. But I was impressed with the transparency and the work that they do just going in as Joe citizen. It's a great organization that he heads.
Thank you, Mr. Duggar. So I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll
I
make
think
a
one of the
motion to
first
approve.
things that we have to do, Mr. Dolan, help us. First thing to do is we're approving the resolution.
I think we can do it in one motion, provided that there isn't a desire to split the items. What we're doing is we're approving the resolution agreement, we're introducing the repealing ordinance and publishing the repealing ordinance. We're also confirming the appointment of the two liaisons. I think that will handle it because there's other information in the resolution that if you approve it, will be approved as a result of approving the resolution. So that's really the three components here.
And authorizing the supervisor to sign the
And,
agreement.
well, yeah, authorizing the supervisor to sign, correct, also. So those four elements can be done in one motion unless there's a desire of the board to separate each of the items.
Pleasure of the board.
I'd like to make a motion to approve per Jack
As stated.
as stated.
I'll second that.
Okay, been moved by Treasurer Aiello, supported by Clerk Meltzer. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Treasurer Aiello,
Yes.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Trustee Wade,
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak.
Yes.
Trustee Kress,
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam,
Yes.
Trustee King,
Yes.
motion passes.
Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
With Deputy Supervisor O'Leary and Mr. Lewis for joining us here tonight to kind of help the board work through and the way we have to navigate this process. So, all right. Item number 6, adopt resolution revising the fee schedule ordinance establishing the 2025 water and sewer rates. Finance Director Hines. Well, I guess we'll read the letter first and then turn things over.
Dear members of the board, we have updated the Water and Sewer Fund financial forecast to determine the water and sewer rates to be charged in the upcoming budget year. The forecast considers the 7/1/2024 rate increases from Great Lakes Water Authority and the Oakland and Macomb Interceptor Drainage Districts, the cost of operations, debt service payments, and the capital needs of the Water and Sewer Fund. The goal of the forecast is to smooth out the rate increases and still provide the working capital needed to operate the fund. The forecast results in an overall increase in variable rates of 2.8%, broken down as follows. The current rate underwater is $3.58, I should say. Proposed model will be $3.66, which is a proposed change of 2.2%. For sewer, the current rate is $7.34, with a proposed model of $7.57, and that proposed change is 3.1%. So your total overall proposed change is a total of 2.8%. Additionally, the forecast calls for an increase in the total monthly ready-to-serve fee, which will affect customers differently depending on the size of their meter. Most customers have either a 5/8 inch or 1 inch meter. The increase in the total ready-to-serve fee for a customer with a 5/8 inch meter is 60 cents per month. The increase in the total ready-to-serve fee for a customer with a 1 inch meter is $1.50 per month. Attached is a resolution for the proposed water and sewer rates for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2025. Sincerely, Mary Hine, Finance Director.
Ms. Hine.
Good evening. Yeah, this is just the annual process where we take the rate increases that were proposed actually last July from Great Lakes Water Authority and the interceptor districts, and we put that into our rate model to determine the rate increase that we need to be able to operate our system. As the letter states, it takes into account those rate increases from Great Lakes Water Authority and the interceptor drainage districts. It takes into account the cost to operate our fund, because while they provide the water to the township, we have, I forget how many miles of water and sewer lines within the township that our employees have to maintain. So those costs are baked into this. The capital projects that are proposed, the cost of that is baked into this. And I feel like and debt service payments are baked into this model. So we do this every year, and this is the results from the model for this year.
So if I remember correctly in my conversation with you and Ms. Bednar, it is more than 370 miles of underground water pipes that are maintained by the township. So Great Lakes Water is bringing that to us. We are then putting that into our system to get it to the residents. And then sewer lines is even more. It's over 400 miles of sewer line that are required to.
Actually, so that's what we said this morning without having the numbers in front of us. But I had them flipped. So for water, we have 435 miles of water lines. And for sewer lines, we are 349 miles of sewer.
Okay. So I got it.
Yeah, no, you said it right. I said it wrong in the meeting this morning.
Okay. So I just think about that and the fact that we maintain over 400 miles of underground pipe. Tribute to Ms. Bednar and Mr. Tresick and their departments for the work that they do. I also think that this model is one that allows us to more accurately reflect a fairer increase than just pass-alongs. I've talked to a lot of communities that say, look, so Great Lakes Water is saying, hey, this is our increase to you. They just do the same, they factored in all of their extra costs that they previously had already baked into the system, and then just increase that by that percentage. We actually wait a while to see how we can apply those increases to our system based upon our actual costs. And then more accurately reflect, because I think the Great Lakes Water Authority increase was actually higher than what we're proposing. Here.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was over
It was.
3%. This is
Correct.
at 2.8%. So we can do things to save money, and that's what I would like to ask either of the Marys, let's put it that way, to speak to the things that we do within our department to save money so that we can actually provide a fair rate to our residents.
I think I'm up. So we do several things in our system. Since 2012, we have put what's called a PRV, which is a pressure reducing valve, at our 5 locations where we get water from Great Lakes Water Authority. What that does is helps us monitor the pressures coming in to our community, so that if for some reason they need to add, like spike the pressure to be able to get water to the north of us, then we don't have a problem. So it kind of helps us keep what's within our system more stable. How does that save money? It usually reduces water main breaks. After we installed these, we went down, I want to say by, Joe, if you remember correctly, it was approximately 60% we went down in water main breaks, which means not overtime, but also not inconveniences and issues with their township and our residents that are getting water from us. We also have a storage tank we put in the 80s. It's kind of, if anyone's been reading the news in the last couple years, it's been, put in a storage tank to help shave off those peak hours during the summer when everyone's sprinkling and so forth. We put it in the 80s. So we've been getting the benefit of having that storage tank. But again, that storage tank not only helps us keep our costs down from Great Lakes Water Authority, but it also helps us in our day-to-day operations. Recently, we just had a water main break, and that tank went into operation so that we could maintain pressure to our residents while we were trying to fix that water main break, which was a fairly large break. We have two emergency connections with Macomb Township that we are now physically going through and operating with them on a regular basis to make sure that if we ever needed flow, so if for some reason we weren't getting enough flow from our Great Lakes, we could get flow from Macomb Township and vice versa, if for some reason they had a major catastrophe. So we were looking at that when that large water main break from Great Lakes Water Authority up in the Port Huron area happened. We were looking at, Macomb Township was seeing lower pressure. So if we would have needed to turn those on to help them out because we were fine in Clinton Township. So again, another cost saving. We have, since 2019, we've completed 27 water projects, which is about 15 miles of basically rehabbing existing old water mains so that they're more reliable and so forth. And we have approximately 5 more going out to bid or, in the works as we speak. As far as sewer, unless there's any questions on water.
Well, I guess before we go off of water, I think it might be important to talk about the charges that come from Great Lakes in peak hours. They charge us more. And in non-peak hours, we pay less. So when we utilize the tank and we refill it in non-peak hours. Is that correct?
So basically what happens is in the summer, particularly when people are sprinkling and so forth and everybody, there's peak times when people are using water. And so we have to, what we're doing when I say shave the peak is instead of buying water from them during that peak, we're actually using water we bought earlier in the day, basically, at nighttime when everyone is sleeping, we're filling that tank so that we're ready to go. So when everyone wakes up, we have water and we can so we don't have to buy it at that peak rate. We can basically use the lower rate. So that's what I mean by shaving the peaks. So going on to sewer real quick.
It took me some time to understand it, so I figured I'd.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. I mean, Joe and I would love to sit down and talk more with you as whatever detail you need, but that's kind of the quick overview. As far as sanitary sewer, it's a little bit different. Sanitary sewer, we try, in the perfect world, you want sanitary sewer to flow by gravity. However, with the Clinton River, a beautiful asset of the Clinton River, we have what we call 13 sewer pump stations that we have to have throughout the township that actually lifts that sewer so that we can then run by gravity again. Because in order to get, say, Rivergate to the outlet that's in Garfield, it has to go underneath the Clinton River. So we get under the river, we lift it back up, and then we send it to Garfield. So we have 13 of those in our community. We have been ongoing projects. We talked about the TV and cleaning of our sewer lines. We can say that we're on our last project, that we can say that we'll now have seen every sanitary sewer within the last 10 years. And believe it or not, that's, some people say, wow, it took you that long type idea. There's communities that have gone a lot longer than that. So we're being proactive to see it. So once we see it, then we can rate what kind of condition it's in and say, okay, this is an immediate repair, so that we don't end up with like a major sinkhole like they did on 15, the Interceptor did on 15 Mile Road. But we could also look and go, okay, we don't need to address this right now, but we better plan on it in 5 years. So we have eyes on all of the sewers at this point. Or gonna be, I think we're finishing it up as we speak, but very shortly. We have lined since 2000, 90 miles of sewer. And that was as a result of our administrative consent order that we had on, with sanitary sewer overflows. We have lined, of that 90, we've lined 26 of them since 2015. Lining adds extension, so instead of putting new pipes in, lining basically acts as a new pipe. So we're going into the sewer and you're lining it and putting in a sleeve to the pipe itself, and that gives you basically a brand new pipe. So now, so we have 90 miles of pipe that is brand new basically since 2000.
But that means less.
So that means less infall and infiltration. So groundwater, sometimes what you'll see is on a wet year, you will look at what we send sewage-wise to the Macomb Interceptor Drainage District. That will have a higher flow going to them than what we bought from Great Lakes Water Authority. Because it was a wet year, so we bought less water because people aren't sprinkling, but groundwater is up, and that's getting into the sewer. So lining those pipes and those older pipes is very important so that you're not getting groundwater into it. So that's kind of in a nutshell some of the stuff that we've been doing.
I think it was important to mention that. Thank you, Ms. Bednar. And then back to Ms. Klein. One of the things when we met on this, having a sense as to what this means for individual residents, I think is important. And so you provided a chart. I provided that chart to the board members.
Okay.
But it's basically based upon, we now have this system of ready-to-serve fee, which is the cost of maintaining our system, both the water system and the sewer system. And then you have a consumption factor, right?
Correct.
So you pay for how much water and how much sewer you're actually using.
Yes.
Right? But then the maintenance are more fixed cost, and so that's the ready-to-serve fee. And you've been able to apply the increase model, actual dollar amount, based upon the size of the line coming into the house.
Yes.
And then also what the utilization is.
Yes.
And so what we're seeing is to just take, for instance, if you have a 5/8 line coming into the house and you use 5 units of water, you would have paid last year $80.99.
For a 5/8 inch meter is $68.85.
Excuse me, $68.85.
Yep.
And now, under this new rate, it's going to be $71.
Correct.
So we're talking
$2.15.
$2.15 increase.
Yep.
Which is less than the actual increase presented to us by Great Lakes Water
Yes.
back in July.
Correct.
Okay. And you can go on and follow the chart, but it actually spells all this out, and we can put this on the website to make sure the residents have access to it as well. Okay. Trustee Kress.
The Interceptor collapse, are we paying for that out of these monies, or is that a different, are we still paying on the collapse?
There is debt, yes.
Does it come out of these
Yeah, it comes out of
monies?
this fund, correct.
Do you know how
Yes.
much we still owe on that?
Not off the top of my head. I don't, off the top of my head, no.
Is it a tremendous amount?
Probably, it's in the millions.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big number.
And we're paying it down in this fashion. We're increasing the rates, and that's, we're
Yes,
paying it
the
down.
water
Is-
fund operates separately on its own, and all of the debt that's related, either debt that we issued, which is minimal, and then the debt that the county interceptor drainage districts, they issue debt as well, and we get our proportionate share of that debt, and all of that is paid out of these rates.
So none of it comes out of the general fund, it all comes out of
Correct.
this? Okay.
And I guess to that point, there are several, it's not just the Macomb Interceptor, that main line on 15. There are several drainage districts.
Oh, yeah.
That we don't have any control over, right?
Correct.
They are under the control of Public Works in the county and sometimes Great Lakes Water.
It's the Oakland,
pretty
in
much-
Oakland County, it's the
The
Water
OMID?
Resource
Yes.
Commissioner, I guess the OMID, Oakland Macomb Interceptor Drainage District.
There's an
is-
independent board, basically, an
Correct.
amalgamation of the communities, and then everybody's assigned a percentage based upon their usage, right?
Correct.
And so oftentimes when we see those, we have an option to either bond for them or we can pay them up front.
Correct.
We tend to,
The last couple we have paid up front
We
because
have
our
paid-
allocation wasn't that huge, and we opted to save the residents the interest that they'd be paying.
yeah, so we're not
Because that's in the hundreds
accumulating
of
more
thousands.
debt,
That would be
we're
another
paying it.
savings that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the bond administration expense too.
Yes, yes, because in that instance, we're a larger, our community uses a larger portion of it, so we always have to be one of the communities that provides all of the financial information to be able to issue the debt, which takes me a lot of time to pull that information together. And it all has to go into the bond documents. And it also probably looks worse on our bond rating. So if we have the ability, to pay it, we pay it up front. So the last couple were not huge amounts, so we were able to pay them up front.
Trustee Matuzek.
This is, to me, remarkable that you can keep these increases as low as we can keep them. And I know that I think of it as a year behind. So we get the rate increase from Great Lakes from last year, and then we figure out our actual usage and our actual costs, and we spread that out, and
Correct.
this is the amount we're increasing this year. Well, Great Lakes just announced their increase for this year was ridiculous,
Yes.
7-8%.
Yes.
So that means next year, we're gonna have to look at what that increase looks like.
Correct.
And while we are not a community that just automatically passes it through,
Right.
it could be fairly substantial.
I would imagine next year's increase will be higher, but with our model, it tries to smooth that out. We project forward for 5 years, and we try to smooth out what the rate increase will be so that it's not doing this kind of thing for everybody. So I would imagine next year will be higher, but hopefully not to the level that they're raising it.
Yeah, because they're talking about a ridiculous amount
Yeah.
of raising it, and I don't know.
And
how.
we only know water, we don't know the sewer side, I don't think, right? Yeah, I didn't
Right.
think, yeah.
All right. So I appreciate the work you all do trying to keep these down. I mean, nobody wants to pay
Well,
more.
that's these days. I just do the numbers.
We're a good team.
Okay, further discussion from the board? From the public?
I want to add something.
Yeah,
I just
speaking.
ask that, some of these different things that you've had, I know that you've added some things over the course of time to our website, but I think it'd be really great if we could add this on for the general public to be able to see some of the efforts and work that you've done to keep savings there and try to keep these costs lower. So I know that's a big task, but, maybe something you could chew on over the course of time.
I can get with Jim Perpich and see, because quite frankly, I don't know if you look at what Mary put together, her spreadsheet looks a lot better than my spreadsheet, because it's definitely engineering. So maybe I can work with Jim Perpich, because I don't know if you'd want to see how I would write it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Pleasure of the board. Need a motion?
We need a motion to approve the rate increase?
The rate increase.
Resolution Mary drafted a resolution, so
The
you're
resolution
asking to.
as presented.
It would be appropriate to receive and file the letter that was also submitted from the Director of Public Services and adopt the resolution revising the fee schedule.
Perfect.
I'll second that.
It was actually written by the finance director.
That's all right. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just by the Marys.
Further discussion? A roll call, please.
Trustee Matuzak.
Yes.
Clerk Melzer, yes. Trustee Wade.
Yes.
Trustee Kress.
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam.
Yes.
Trustee King.
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item number 7, request approval for capital outlay purchase of used vehicle for the fire, or from the fire department to Parks and Rec.
Dear board members, we are requesting the purchase of a 2014 Ford Explorer from the Clinton Township Fire Department that is currently scheduled to go to auction. The suggested purchase price for this vehicle is $9,500. The vehicle has 115,000 miles on the odometer. The purchase of this vehicle aligns with our department's goals of modernizing the overall fleet for safety and maintenance purposes. This vehicle was approved in our capital outlay request for the current fiscal year and will replace an older vehicle in our fleet. We thank you for your consideration of this purchase request. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. Best regards, Brian Kay, our Recreations Department Director.
Director Kay is here. If members have questions for him.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to make a motion to approve his request.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
I also
been
have a
moved,
comment.
been moved and supported. Discussion? Trustee
I have to
Kress.
say that I'm thrilled that they're doing this, because it's a cost savings. I would like to see us do this in the building department with our police cars that are going to auction. I know that Warren does that. Warren takes their old police cars, and they've been well-maintained, and they're owned by the township, and the building department gets them. For the life of me, I'm not sure why the building department has pickup trucks, because they don't build anything. But I'd like to see this program go further into, like, for instance, the building department, and utilize our well-maintained vehicles for other purposes. Thank you.
Further discussion from the board? Roll call?
Clerk Melzer, yes. Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 8, request approval of capital outlay purchase for new recreation department printer.
Dear board members, we're requesting the purchase of a new recreation software from Vermont Systems, Inc. in the amount of $26,266 for the initial first year of contract, which includes training and setup. Is that the
Nope,
wrong?
nope,
Yeah,
nope,
that
nope.
is,
Yep.
Sorry,
I think,
sorry,
I think
sorry.
8 is
went too
the
far.
printer.
that is a big, yeah. That was an expensive printer. We're requesting the purchase of a new printer for our department. The brand and model are Ricoh IM-C6010. The Michigan My Deal listed purchase price for this printer is $10,397. The purchase of this printer will replace an older unit that has operated for over 20 years and has become increasingly more difficult to find replacement parts for while requiring more frequent service repairs. This printer capital outlay purchase was transferred to the upcoming fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for purchase due to its current condition. We're bringing the item forward and would like to have the replacement printer, we're bringing the item forward now as there is an anticipated delay of 30 to 60 days for delivery after ordering this printer. We would like to have the replacement printer ordered and readily available for the beginning of April. The printing functions available with this new printer will meet our existing needs and has been recommended by our IT department. We have attached the printer information and quote sheet from Ricoh. We thank you for your consideration of this purchase request. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. Best regards, Brian Kay, Recreation Director.
Okay. Director Kay is in the audience, if anybody has questions for him. Pleasure of the board.
I got a
Trustee Matuzak and then Trustee King.
I don't have a question exactly, except how do you keep a printer going for 20 years? That's like remarkable. It's like nothing, no bit of technology like that lasts for 20 years. So I commend you for. Yeah, exactly. I commend you for that. It saves us money, but it's time for a new printer.
Trustee King. I had a list.
Are
Sorry.
these this printer, is it going to be used for like typical office printing, or is this going to be used for communications to go out to the community, or both, or?
This printer will be used for some communications that go out to the community, but mainly office printing. And then if we have any handbooks for our department, we would do those.
What?
There's a guest that's on here.
Might want to move in.
Ms.
Okay,
Meltzer,
it's
are we
now
able to
deleted. The guest, there's a guest on our, that was talking, probably didn't realize they were not muted.
Okay.
I mean, they're muted now. Go ahead.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Wait, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Quick
Wait.
question. I just have a quick
Yep.
question. So is this the printer that we had to utilize during the Emily FOIA request where I had to photocopy all those ballots?
Yep.
That was an amazing printer. Will the new one have that capability?
It'll have all of the same features and
Okay.
functions. That's what we
Yeah.
want to make sure that. And other departments in the township also utilize
Mm-hmm.
it for some of their color scanning features as well.
Yeah, that was an amazing printer. It really did do a lot. I mean, to even answer that FOIA request, that was enormous. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
No, not yet. I'll make a motion
I'll second it.
to receive and file the letter and approve the request for the purchase.
Further discussion? Board? Public? Roll call.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 9, request approval to purchase new recreation software for the Recreation Department and Senior Adult Life Center for fiscal year 25-26.
We're requesting the purchase of new recreation software from Vermont Systems, Inc. in the amount of $26,266 for the initial first year of the contract, which includes training and setup. The annual recurring cost will be $17,766. This software will be equally utilized and shared expense for the Recreation Department and the Seniors Department, with capacity to expand in the future with the Department of Public Services. This purchase and corresponding budget request for fiscal year 2025 and 26 became necessary due to our current provider being part of a recent business acquisition and their parent company's plan to phase out support of our software in September 2025. Over the past few months, we took a proactive team approach to find a solution that best fits our needs moving forward and migrating our recreation software to a cloud-based platform. Staff members from several departments, including treasurers, finance, seniors, recreation, public services, and IT, that will be interacting with this software, provided input on specific functions needed. Upon the conclusion of the process of attending demos and receiving answers to our prepared questions about the capabilities of 3 companies, Vermont Systems checked off all the necessary boxes to meet and exceed the demands of daily operations for the Recreation and Seniors departments, with capabilities to assist the Department of Public Services. Vermont Systems, Inc. was our previous recreation software provider before changing to support a local township-based business that has since changed ownership. They have been in business since 1985 and specialize in recreation software supporting municipalities and government agencies. Other local communities that also utilize this software are Macomb Township and the City of Warren. We have attached the recreation software information and quote sheet from Vermont Systems for your review. Our township attorney has also received a copy of their service agreement contract for review before moving forward with this software product. We thank you for your consideration of this purchase request. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. Best regards, Brian Kay, Recreation Director.
Questions from the board? Trustee Matuzak.
Through you to our department head.
Mr. Kay?
So this new software system will allow you in the senior center to sort of integrate programming events, sponsorships, that sort of thing?
This will be the administrative collection of all the information from our participants to participate in activities, attend events, sign off on any waivers digitally, and us to communicate back and forth with them.
Okay.
Yep.
My one criticism of the current system is it's very difficult to use. It's somewhat confusing. You go to the website, you got to set up an account, you got to do, there seems like so many steps to sign up to do something. Is this going to be better, simpler?
Yes, this should simplify some of that and make it more accessible in navigation of the website and
Okay,
through the
and will it
registration
de-
process.
Okay, and will at the back end allow us to collect the information? How many Clinton Township residents are using this service? How many are from out of the township?
Correct.
That sort of thing, so that when it comes time to look at some programming and some budget stuff, we can get a real sense of, are we
Correct.
serving our residents mostly? Are we serving?
Yeah, it's one of
everyone
the
around us?
reports they'll be able to offer through that
All
new
right,
service.
because I think that's really important when it comes time to looking at that sort of budget things. But promise me it will be easier to use.
It will be.
Okay.
Yep.
In which case, I will
Easier
make
for
them.
us to use too, because we have a couple remote login things that we have to do that we wouldn't have to anymore. Just helps out our staff and cuts down on some of that as well.
All right.
Yep.
So does this require a budget amendment because we're moving money from one year to the other?
We wouldn't be purchasing this until the next fiscal
Until the
year.
next fiscal
I'm
year.
just bringing it before the board now as it's above the dollar amount, and also it's just something new.
Right.
Just to be proactive and transparent. This is something that we have in the budget, but it would be approved as part of the budget process. But we're not trying to circumvent any systems in place, but we just finished up our process and wanted to present our findings to the board.
Well, and there's no doubt some lead time involved
Correct.
in this.
Yep.
Well, I would make a motion to purchase the new recreation software from Vermont Systems, Inc. in the amount of.
Thank you.
Wait, hang on.
We got
Ron?
another question.
In the amount of $26,266.
And then also the annual. There's
And
an
then the annual fee of $17,766.
Is there
I'll
support? Okay. Been moved and supported. Further discussion? Trustee King.
It sounds like this is going to be a much better system than what we have currently, but there's still like some legacy systems around the township that, are systems that people don't enjoy or say that don't work really well. Say, for example, you have a poor experience with this within the first year. What's your recourse to go through to get this, either stop using it and getting out of the contract or getting it to work in a way that, satisfies you and the rest of the
We would
department?
have a opt-out clause within appropriate amount of time that Mr. Dolan would review in the contract, standard with what we have for our current company. So usually in that, it's around 60 days.
You said around 60 days?
Yeah, it's around 60 days notice.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Where we would break the contract or move in a different direction. Yep.
What are the?
Trustee Kress.
Sorry. What are the costs associated with the system we have now? Are they in line with these? It seems very steep, the $26,000.
It is a little bit higher, but we're moving off of a hosted product to something more cloud-based and modern.
So what's our fee?
$5,500 right now to this new product.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a consolidation in the industry, and a lot of companies are just migrating to cloud-based products only. So they're not supporting any server-based product, and there's a cost associated to have those.
So did this go out for bid?
This went out for quotes due to the unique service for the software. We did
What were the other
receive.
dollar amounts?
The other was $7,500 for the parent company that didn't meet our current needs, and the other one was $18,000 through Civic Rec, which is a parent company of Civic Plus.
And we opted for this one, why?
We opted for this one because they didn't have any workarounds. They had direct solutions for everything that we needed to do. The other company had a higher uplifting, is what they called it, of 5% per year. And that ended up being a lot more in the long run.
So we weren't obligated to take the low bid in this instance?
In this instance, it's a unique software item.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Further discussions? We have a motion and support.
Do we
Roll call,
need,
please.
I'm sorry, one question. Do we need to approve not using the bid policy on this, or is the quote, was that sufficient? Did we have to override that?
I think this is professional services, though.
Yeah,
just wanna make
typically,
sure, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No,
Finish.
I just wanted to make sure, I don't want to, have to come back and do it again do we need to make that request to not use the bid policy?
Do we need to waive the
override
bid
it?
policy
Yeah,
as
or-
part of the motion, Mr. Dolan?
I don't believe we have to, because what we're dealing with is an adjusted comparison
Okay,
on
then
pricing.
I'm good.
Because as he mentioned, out of the chute, so to speak, we are not taking the low bidder. But I believe he's saying his analysis is if we maintain this product, that we will actually, over time, be dealing with the low bidder. Is that correct?
Because
So it's just
the parent
way of
company isn't a workable
It's a way of
solution.
analyzing the bids as presented. If you are looking at it as a short-term product that we'll only have for a very short period of time, it's not the low bid. But if we go any length of time similar to what we've had in the past, it would be the low bid. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would also like to add on the parent company also proposed that we would have to purchase other third-party vendors' services to be able to facilitate all the other ones. So if we wanted to email, we would have to buy Constant Contact subscription for all the emails we sent out. If we wanted to send text messages, we would have to buy Twilio. So it's not really just the $7,500 quote. It's more like a Constant Contact subscription for $3,000 a month to accommodate our
I think the term
database.
apples to apples comes into play here.
Yeah.
So we do have a motion, we
Yep.
have support,
Yes.
and seeing no further discussion, roll call?
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
No.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Clerk Melcher, yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 10, adoption of the board rules. Do we have a letter on this, Miss?
No,
Counselor?
this is, no, there's no letter. This was
I
a,
will defer
was sent-
to
yeah,
the
Trustee
item
Kress.
submittal, trustee Kress. I keep doing that, sorry, Mike.
Keep saying that.
I sat in his chair for a little bit today. What I've presented is an abbreviated set of board rules that have been distributed to everyone. And I think that this meets our requirements. It's been reviewed by legal counsel, and it brings us in compliance with having board rules. And it's a much simplified version that I think we all can agree on.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and supported, discussion. I'm going to just refer to trustee King because I know that this is part of our earlier discussion.
Yes, I would just, as we were talking earlier, I'd want us to think a little bit more about our residents as a true partnership as we go through this. And so I respect the board rules that submitted, Dan, but what I'd like to look at is adding a provision in that we're not just meeting like the bare minimum when it comes to the open meetings component, and then we actually put in a time frame for agenda preparation and the supplemental information that's prepared. So I did distribute, a transparency component that really speaks to agenda preparation and the time that it's out there as far as the supplemental information and things of 4 calendar days, so that our residents have an opportunity to be able to review the information as we receive it. I think that's fair. I think that promotes engagement from our residents, and if nothing else, they have things in their hands the same time frame that we have it. And I think that's a fair shake and a good opportunity for us to bring them in and have a good engagement and be a part of the decision-making process and come here at these meetings and be actively engaged with us to be able to ask questions, or if nothing else, to know fully what we're voting on and know that they have the appropriate time to be able to do so. So That being said, I'd like for that to be considered as an add-on.
So are you saying you want to add this as an amendment to the current motion?
That is correct.
Adoption of, I'm assuming this document right here?
No, that's a separate document. I don't know where that came from. I think Miss Madam Clerk was passing that around.
We haven't talked about that just yet. So you called on him, I raised my hand, but you called on him, and then
Okay.
I wanted to let you guys know about that, but I was just waiting for you to call on me. But when you're ready.
Point of information, Ms. Meltzer.
Yes. So this actually came in also by trustee Kress late today. And it was my understanding that was going to be added to the agenda by Mr. Kress, but it was not. And so I went and printed these off and gave everybody a copy of them. They're just minor. What I did is highlighted it for you guys to see that of the ones that were originally submitted last week by trustee Kress, there are additional, and I'm assuming this is a result of just of a discussion with the attorney, is that correct?
That is correct.
So these are just minor, very minor additions, which, this really should be the document that I think the motion to approve would be
Yes.
the secondary document that was submitted. And that's what the motion was.
Okay, so let's confirm that with the motion maker.
Yes.
Treasurer Aiello, trustee Kress as the motion maker and the supporter. Is this the document that you're moving?
The documented.
Yes.
The document here with the yellow highlights?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
There is a clean
Okay.
copy, but
So, all right, so this is the motion. Trustee King, you are proposing an amendment to this motion to add in which document with what language?
It's titled 1A. It says, "In order to promote transparency." I need another one.
Got it, right here, okay. Item number 1A. Okay, so we have item number 1, compliance with the Open Meetings Act, and then this would serve as 1A as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that is a motion to amend. Yes?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay, is there support for the motion?
I will support that.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to amend. Discussion on the amendment. Clerk Meltzer.
Thank you. I do find it incredibly ironic and hypocritical that the person that's talking about getting this information out to the public in time, but then inserts it without the public seeing it, wants this done. That said, the content, how it affects what we do at the township level, he says it's to promote transparency, but I don't want the public to feel that there isn't transparency. There definitely is transparency already. Maybe maybe the author feels that this is an additional part of transparency, but what it will do, and that's a concern, and again, that's up to the board to make the decision, but by putting a timetable on our when these can be submitted, it does make it a little more challenging for us to get the information and get the work done of the people. As I stated earlier, we have we offer board meetings twice a month, which is double than what we're required to by state statute. We don't have to do that, but we do, and that is so that we can move the people's work much more quickly, and it's out there more readily for them. There is not a problem with transparency. If, as I stated earlier, all of this information can be accessed on the Wednesday prior to the election, prior to the board meeting, and it's up to the public to elect to, if they have questions, to contact us or any of us board members at any given time, or department heads. They can do that. And with that inquiry, they can learn maybe what the information in the backup. But the problem with having the backup readily there by that Wednesday is that the work isn't done. We only have 2 weeks in between getting this package put together. And so Right now, so if you look at the next agenda item, the next agenda that's going to be coming in March, I don't believe there's anything on that agenda yet. There could be, but I have yet to look at it. But we have an opportunity in those 2 weeks' time, that's a very limited time, to build that agenda and then put all of the documentation together. And what we've done is changed it from, it used to be that, like I said, the public never got an agenda until the board meeting. They would come and they would learn the agenda and so on. Now they get it on the Wednesday, that's 5 days prior to the board meeting. So the public has access under our implementation of an electronic agenda management system that didn't exist before I got here. And I put that out there so that we do have better opportunities for the public to be involved. And it has worked, and we've had public interaction, but to make this a provision that we have to have the board packet 5 days ready or 5 days earlier than the meeting will mean that all those agenda items were going to be postponed to the following 2 weeks. It's going to slow the process down incrementally, and it will be, it will have that image like many governmental institutions have, and that is it takes forever to get anything done. So I'd like us to recognize that prior to this coming forward, we really haven't had any questions or criticisms about transparency. We have had, support, and again, we have over 100,000 residents, and of that number, I mean, if 1 or 2 people call me a week about agenda items, that's a lot. So it isn't, there's not a big demand for this, and as I stated, it's probably going to slow the process down even more if we adopt this last-minute insertion, amendment for this agenda item.
So,
Chair?
Ms. Meltzer, well, hang on, because trustee Matuzik, and then I have some comments.
I have, in the 2 years I have been here, now I guess we're working on 3 years. I don't know what we are. The fact that stuff gets added to the agenda on Friday afternoon and Monday morning and Monday afternoon and is ridiculous. It just makes no sense to me. Yes, you publish an agenda on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
An agenda without the supporting documents means almost nothing. Why would a resident look up something or call about, resolution revising fee schedule ordinance? I mean, it's like the titles frequently don't state what the meat of the agenda item is. If we all get the background information for the preliminary agenda that was on Wednesday, on Friday, I fail to understand why the public should not get that. At a bare minimum, why the public shouldn't get that. And I'm not debating this. I am stating a position I have stated since the day I got here. I don't like when last-minute agenda items get dropped. I think the agenda is set on Wednesday. The supporting documentation is distributed to everyone, including the public, on Friday. If things need to be added or removed from the agenda, they can be done at the beginning of the meeting when we approve the agenda. That we just willy-nilly add stuff. I mean, here's perfect examples today. Here's 2 right now that just showed up. I didn't read them this afternoon. Didn't get them. Didn't see them.
They were on the computer.
That's ridiculous in my mind. We need to be accountable to the public. The public needs to be able to see what we're doing. And that means if the background information is prepared, as you said, on Friday, although I question that sometimes, and I've called you on that sometimes, it is not available on Friday. Why isn't it available to the public? But mostly I get extremely aggravated by the fact that we just keep willy-nilly changing this agenda until the start of the meeting. An agenda should be set on Wednesday. Any additions or subtractions can happen at the beginning of the meeting when we adopt the agenda. And I've been saying this every time we've discussed these rules, which I think this is a ridiculous process we have now gone through for weeks and weeks, and there was going to be a committee, and then there wasn't going to be a committee, and then we tried to pull people together, and then no one came together. Is ridiculous. But my issue is that there should be an agenda on Wednesday, supporting documents on Friday. It should go to the public, and if we can't manage that for every 2 weeks, then we are in pretty sorry shape.
So, if I could, I was part of writing board rules originally when they were adopted and approved by this board. We did so because we saw all these things up in the air all the time. There weren't clarifications. The Charter Township Act and the General Law Township Act, which govern the work that we do here. We are a political subdivision of the state of Michigan. We derive both our authority and responsibility from the state, and those cover the bare minimum of items. The original rules that were offered here in the original motion is not board rules. What they are is a reference to state statutes that we don't really even need to reference because by law, we're bound to them. What we tried to address in board rules were those things over and above that were not clearly delineated directly in the state statutes. Those things over and above, like making sure that we have a schedule, and when the schedule's actually presented, so that all of the board members have time to review it, review their calendars, and comment on it. And Ms. Meltzer's been great about that process of getting us a calendar by November, whatever that date was that was in that. And she says, here's option A and here's option B, and take a look at your calendars. And it's a deliberative process, and we can sit down with them and we can write it out. But that deadline held us firm because it was in the rules. And so the then saying, oh, that this is board rules, and it satisfies the transparency call that has been made repeatedly for the past few months is kind of absurd. So in an attempt, I see this amendment as holding us to those same types of deadlines. To say, hey, now it doesn't mean it's end all be all, because the fact is, I've been an administrator of a department and a policymaker here on this board. 8 years as treasurer, 4 years as budget ways and means, dealing with some of the weighty issues that come forward. I can't always get that letter out when we always want it. But I know I always make that attempt. And I know it's been very rare that any of those things have ever been submitted after the Friday. Sometimes, but not always. Most of the time, it got there by that Friday. And so having the rule in place basically says, hey, you have to do this. You got to get it out. You got to get it done. You got to bring it forward so everybody can see it and evaluate it. And so I support the amendment. I'm going to support it. And without this even being in there, the original motion doesn't even come close to being board rules. It's simply a reference document that is unnecessary because we are already bound by state statute. That's my opinion. I've got Trustee King and Trustee Wade.
Yeah, I just simply appreciate your thoughts. I just want to say this. We're here to serve the people. And so that being said, if we have to go through an extra step, an extra layer of work or activity to be able to serve our residents and give them the opportunity to be able to view the information as we are receiving it. I think that's really important because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our, serving our residents. So it just seems like we're trying to just make things easier maybe for us. And I think we have to be willing to just realize that we are here to serve, and we need to make things available for our residents so that they feel comfortable and are a part and engaged part of this whole partnership of governance. If they're not, that kind of leads to the mistrust and all the issues that we have at a national and a state level. And at this point, we here locally should be the glue that's bringing everybody together and making everyone feel confident and comfortable. So all due respect, Madam Clerk, that the work that your team might have to do to get this going, we need to be able to be here to serve our residents. It's not just about it being easy for us. I'll yield.
Trustee Wade.
Yeah, I want to kind of build on, and I agree with a lot of what you said there, Supervisor Gilliam. I think with this whole process, there's two issues here. There's the board rules, and then there's the agenda. And we keep beating each other up over that. I think the whole process got off to a very bad start, and I'm just going to be honest about it. There was some social media stuff put out there that we did not have rules. That was a total misstatement. We do have rules, as Mr. Gilliam pointed out, that we're all bound by. He's ran great meetings since we started this new board, and it's been under the direction of these rules. And I think they've served us very well. The rules that were presented by the township, or whoever put them together, I think it was very redundant, and I think something that Trustee Kress proposed is in addition to these rules, which accommodates our needs. So I think if we all kind of work together, because I know I was getting phone calls and people were sending me stuff that was put on social media, and it just creates a bunch of mumbo jumbo confusion. And why don't you have rules? Why are you against rules? Nobody is against rules. Myself, I would rather just stick to the state law, period. But I understand some people want to massage it and have it work towards our advantage, and I'm okay with that. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion here. I think we should adopt the rules as presented by Trustee Kress, and I'm going to duck under the table after I mention this. I would like to see if we could have two representatives sit down together, and I'm going to say the clerk and Trustee King, maybe they could meet and kind of come to some common ground on some agenda stuff. It would be nice to have everything out there by a Wednesday. I completely agree. But sometimes that's not always possible. And I'll speak for myself. If there's going to be something of major concern that's coming up, and the clerk has the information at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, I want her to send it out so at least I get a chance to read it, as opposed to handing it to me at 6:30 and saying, hey, we got to have this on there. And maybe it's something that's going to really be in-depth. What if something happened to the building and it was a $50,000 repair, and there was several different versions of what the repair was going to be? If I had the opportunity to start reading it at 9 in the morning on a Monday, I'd rather do that. And I'm sorry if somebody doesn't check it, but at least there's a possibility of that opportunity. But I think adopting those rules that we have tonight, and then the two of you, if you would agree to do it, come to some agreement on some boundaries we could set down, and we could add it to the document. That's what I think. And I respect the hell out of Trustee King. He knows that. and I know he's very passionate. And I respect Clerk Meltzer. I know she's trying to put the information out there the best she can. So it's two people with good intentions. And I really would like to see both of you, because you both have good information, put something together, and we all walk away singing to the same sheet of music. That's my spin on it.
Okay. So right now, we're on the issue of the King Amendment. And any further discussion from board members? Mr. Bushel, on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
There again. This amendment actually saves work for the clerk, because right now, if you're all getting your electronic board packet on Friday, she has to do something different so as the public can't see it. It's a masking operation. And there again, I have come up many times and complained about the stuff not being available, and even at the last meeting, and even insultingly, even the public service announcement today, was that people didn't, it was there and people just didn't know how to find it. And there again, I'm glad that Mr. King took the time to actually detail it all through the weekend, showing that, no, this stuff isn't there. Well, in all actuality, it's not there. It hasn't been there a lot. Even stuff like the wood chipper removal. It's a matter of, there's been all kinds of stuff that the public, if they get this on, there again, we obviously, it was no reason that somebody couldn't, I send you so much stuff that's published, that's pulled off of there. You understand I know how to read it. Whereas the clerk tried to make it sound like the public didn't know how to access the files. In all actuality, if you vote against this amendment, you're voting to make the clerk do an extra step, not less. And the extra step is just to keep the public in the dark. And a lot of these items, if something comes up like the wood chipper again, we have to have time to not only read it ourselves, but to get our, people that are interested in this same issue to get, to get them back walls open to get some action. And that's where, by keeping it in the dark until Monday morning, which really would have been a big help if the clerk had said, well, yeah, the public really can't see it until Monday morning. She did say that today. Well, good news. That means that I'm retired, so I can get to see it then. But to actually get a hold of people that are working, which is, the taxpayers that you serve, your electors, they can't do much if they only find it on Monday morning. And then there's all the add-ons, like I said. And for everybody to understand, just think of the fact of the wood chipper, or some of the other items that have come up that have been very, very important, that have been held off to the public until the Monday morning. Is that acceptable to this board, that you really want to keep people from knowing what actually, because the agenda items, when you read them, this week is clearer than most. Most times, from just reading the agenda, you have no idea. And does this board truly, the majority of you actually want to keep to the minimums? You don't want to do anything that, there again, then the minimum would be for the clerk not to block out the citizens on Friday. This amendment makes a lot of sense to me if you want to keep your electors informed of what's happening, and you don't want to put up smoke and mirrors like saying, oh, the public just doesn't know how to access the data. Well, let me tell you, yep.
Just one final question before we vote on the amendment. And that is, as I'm reading this, I don't believe this prohibits anything from actually appearing on the agenda. But what it means is that we would have to vote. Instead of it automatically being placed there by the clerk, we would have to vote to place it on the agenda when we approve the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the case. Well, right now, when it's automatically on there, because it's on there, then it becomes, when we approve the agenda, we're approving that too.
Yes.
I think what the previous version of the rules, and I think what this one in this amendment states, is that this doesn't prohibit a last-minute agenda item. What it will do, however, is to say it's not automatically just on the agenda and we vote once to approve the agenda. We will have to approve adding this to the agenda because it was an item that wasn't all a part of the backup. And if that is true, then I think this helps improve our understanding of saying it's not an automatic made somewhere else. It's made at the board table if we're doing something at the last minute to add on. And I think that's important. So with that, Ms. Meltzer, in response?
Yeah, just for clarification, that is how we do it. We have the option prior, and it's even an agenda item. If you look at our packet, it is approval of agenda. And at that moment, board members can request to have anything removed, or they can we lost our Google meeting. Hang on one second.
Well, so just let me clarify, Ms. Meltzer, because I think we're sort of getting close, but we're not quite in agreement on this, because what we're saying is, rather than having it on the agenda, we would have to vote to add it.
Right.
It would be the requirement of a separate vote.
Yes. And we do that.
That is, I think, the point.
Yeah, we do it. We do.
No,
that is allowed.
You do not, yes,
but
it is allowed, but
yeah.
it's not done by practice. I
It
think is
can
the
be,
point.
though, is what I'm saying. It can be, anytime anybody makes that request, they can have something added. But I will say
Okay,
this.
but you understand the difference in what we're saying, right?
Well, I know, but I will say this, if there's anything that, if the concern is that we have notice to the public, waiting until it gets to the night of the meeting to add it is less transparent. I'm not getting that part of it. I don't understand that. By the way, I don't mean to be rude by not looking at you when I talk. I'm just trying to reconnect our go-to meeting so the public can be on. Oh, boy.
Well, do we need a recess?
If you want to just give me a minute, I think it can go on real quick here, but,
In the meantime, I'm going to recognize Trustee Kress.
In principle, I agree with Mr. King. That said, I'm gonna vote no against this friendly amendment, because I'd like to see us come back on Monday, because we are meeting on Monday. And what Mr. Wade said makes a lot of sense. If Mr. King and the clerk can get together and find out what's feasible by state statute or whatever, and what she's capable of doing. I don't want to give her an impossible task list, because I don't know her job. I don't know what she does. I don't know what goes into it, scheduling, that sort of thing. So I'd be delighted if you two could come together and come up with a similar piece of paper like this. And at our next meeting, if you both agree on it, we can vote it as an additional board rule that falls behind the ones we're going to approve tonight. And that's it.
Chair?
Trustee King.
I don't want to exhaust what you said, Dan, so I appreciate your sentiment. Thank you, Mr. Wade, on your comments that you made. I just want to highlight, just for the record, Madam Clerk was the first person I reached out to when we started going through this process. I scheduled a meeting with her, and the document that you have before you is extremely similar, if not almost the same, that I presented to her at that time, and thought I had a good, robust conversation with her. But to everyone's point, I have no problem partnering with anyone and working with everybody to make this happen, because again, I work for the residents, and I think it's important for them. So all the other rhetoric that we've got going on and the tit for tat, it's not important. What really is important is that we deliver for these residents, and I don't think we're currently meeting the mustard for them right now.
Roll call.
I just want to let you know we're on. We're never
Great.
off.
Roll
Okay.
call.
All right.
On the amendment,
Correct.
the King amendment.
Treasurer, oh wait, hang on. That might not be the right one. Okay, Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
No.
Trustee Kress?
No.
Supervisor Gilham?
Yes.
Trustee King, oh, I already got you, sorry. Treasurer Aiello?
No.
Clerk Meltzer, no. Motion fails.
Okay, we are now on the original motion of the proposal presented by trustee Kress.
Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Matusek.
I love all the talk about people getting together to discuss this, to negotiate this, to do whatever. We have been saying that exact same thing now over the course of 2 meetings. It hasn't happened. I got to tell you at this point, I have no trust that it would happen. People have committed to working together in a committee, then no one comes to the committee, then, so I think there is compromise here. I think there is agreement here. I have no trust on this issue anymore. Sorry. We've now done this for 3-4 meetings, it seems like, and people promise they're gonna compromise, they promise they're gonna look at it, they promise we're gonna work at it, and it doesn't come back.
Can I?
It never comes back.
I think this came back. This is
Fourth
presented. It's before us.
Trustee Wade.
And I don't disagree with what you've said. I can only speak from my point of view, and when this initial issue first came about, I think I was pretty clear, and I was communicating with Mr. King that I needed some time to go through all this. And I think I've been very thorough. I've researched other board rules. I've talked to a number of people that sat on this board, Republican and Democrat.
I don't think this is a party issue.
This is my time.
Yeah, but I just want to say, I don't think it's a party issue.
This is my time. And to a person, not one of them thinks we need to adopt those board rules. Okay? And I simply think, and I think I've been very clear about this, I wanted the state rules. Trustee Kress has added some rules, and I hope the two of you, because you both got great ideas, if you come together, and I am going to have a little bit of faith in them, I may think differently. I would like them to get together and put something together that we can all work with. So I think we've covered some good ground. And I do have faith in both of them, and I have faith that we're going to get this together. That's my opinion.
Further discussion from the board.
There is a comment on social media.
Let's roll with that.
Roll with it? Okay.
Yeah.
TS says, why is Sam B allowed to make constant false statements? It is exhausting.
Hey, perfect timing.
Who was that? Who was that?
Anybody know?
I don't know. TS, I don't know who that is.
TS.
So.
Anonymous.
TS, okay. Mr. Bushell, you have the floor.
I'm sorry.
It is quite wild that you ask all of this, even though it's not required, you ask all of the citizens to give their name and address. And yet TS, I'm sure it's what the whole board wants is to, and it's such fun for the audience to hear that Sam B makes all these false things. I'm going to actually FOIA tomorrow to find out who TS is. Because if somebody, that's just a.
Sam, on the motion.
Well, that was on the motion. I have to cover that because.
Not really, Sam. You have to talk to the motion.
You basically constantly, this board, if you vote in these rules, because the one thing you don't want to have is you do not want this, you want actually the clerk to work double. She has to block out the citizens till Monday morning.
Sam, anything new? Because you've already said that one.
Oh, no, but this is the only reason you want, I said the only reason you want this particular set of rules, if you're voting for this particular set of rules, is to block out.
I'm trying to work with you here, Sam. I really
citizens
am.
access.
All right.
Yeah, well, you'll be happy under public comments too, but okay. It's a matter of, that's all, you're just trying to block the public's right to know. And I salute anybody who votes for this because they just don't. There again, as Mr. Wade said, he wants time to study the issue. Well, if the residents could have a couple of extra days to study the issues that are on the agenda it may help. But to keep them in the dark till Monday, and that's the only thing with these rules, you don't want the citizens to be able to actually consider these things to you. And Mr. B does not tell any lies. Everything is covered up, everything is on video, and everything is in the law. And anybody on this board who doesn't want to correct TS right now, you're allowing smearing of a public.
Mr. Supervisor, can you explain too that we only ask for the name and address, we don't demand it. So it is not a FOIA-able, I mean, you could ask us, but we don't know who TS is. We can ask people to put their name on there, but we can't demand it. It's actually illegal, so.
Mr. Dolan?
We have a motion and a support, and the motion is the point of discussion at this point. So if someone wants to discuss further, or you can call the question and vote on the motion.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Just clarification.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
It is not extra work for me, just so everybody knows that. Whatever you guys want is good with me. Okay, Treasurer Aiello. Treasurer Aiello, we're voting on.
Yes.
Okay. Who made this second? Hang on a second. Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
No.
Supervisor Gilliam?
No.
Trustee King?
No.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, that brings us to item number, where's my agenda now? Item number 11, approval to use funding from board-awarded Institute of Responsive Government grant submitted by Clerk Meltzer.
Okay, dear Honorable Board of Trustees, enclosed in the packet for this request is the letter from the Institute of Responsive Government dated February 20th, 2025, extending the grant period to January 1st, 2024 to award the allocation of funding for planning and operationalizing deputy clerk in the amount of $10,109.43 for unused comp and vacation hours totaling 206.25 hours for the period of January 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025. Thank you for your attention to this request, Kim Meltzer, Clinton Township Clerk. And if you read the attachment, the Executive Director sent that over on the 20th. I made that request per your, you pointed that out for me, Supervisor Gilliam, at the last meeting that I brought this forward, that the range of the grant was not for the total that we are looking for. So this grant specifically addresses human capital. It's called human capital in their documentation, and that is to address the deficiencies in the clerking industry when it comes to elections, where the organizations and businesses haven't caught up with the demands of the new laws and the new expectations for elections. And as I stated previous, I don't want to really go into a lot of anything that I said before, but this shows you that this organization that is not taxpayer funded in any way, this is private funding. I know that somebody said that, no, it's all taxpayer money. That is not the case. This is not a federal or a state or a local grant. This is a private company that, or a nonprofit organization that has raised money and given, and there were seven states that were only ones awarded this grant, and Michigan was one of those because of the excellent work our elections workers do. So this is to compensate the deputy clerk for the hours that cannot be comped because they're not allowed to be utilized in the time frame because they're so cumulative, and because I couldn't, the amount to about 2.5 months worth of work. First of all, nobody I know works for 2.5 months without getting compensated. And secondly, even if this person were to use the comp hours, I can't be without a deputy for 2.5 months. It's statutorily, I'm required to have one, and 2.5 months it's just way too much. And I know that in the past meeting, it was stated that I didn't execute, I don't run my office correctly, yet we have excellent elections. We have never have had any negative ink. Our audit proves 100%. Our totals are accurate. We're secure. So for someone to say that I don't manage my office well enough is inaccurate. We did hire an elections coordinator. Even with that elections coordinator, this will not reduce the amount of hours that this deputy has to work to execute a federal election. It's so top-heavy in terms of its content of knowledge that there aren't people that have done the business long enough that could execute 3 elections in a federal year to be able to manage it accurately, securely, and this grant takes care of that without causing our taxpayer any extra money.
Ms. Meltzer, I greatly appreciate you responding to the concerns that I raised last time about the grant dates. But I also stated at that time, in addition to the several other problems that existed with this proposal, I raised that one. You responded to that one, but I think we've had several meetings where we've talked about all the other problems. And so let me just give a real quick synopsis of them. When this originally went to the grant committee to accept this grant, paying the deputy with the grant money was not part of that proposal at that time.
It was.
So when the grant committee approved this, they didn't approve your paying, or didn't approve or recommend to the board that they use this money to pay the deputy. Ms. Irvine is a phenomenal employee, and she does a phenomenal job with the elections, as well as you do. Here's the thing. There is a policy. This is why we have policies. Non-represented employee benefit policy from January 22nd of 2024. Under compensatory and overtime, Section 2, there shall be no payment of compensatory time at any time, including retirement or severance for exempt employees. We're exempt employees. Our deputies are exempt employees. They're paid at the director, assistant director level. That's the money that they make. In terms of how you run your office, I don't think anybody was suggesting that you mismanaged elections or that that you weren't doing things properly. I think it was more along the lines of, and we talked about this back when we originally had a conversation about it, it was about you had a proposal to hire an elections coordinator that sat vacant for a very, very long time. And then it wasn't filled, which then required your deputy to have to work all of these extra hours.
That's not accurate.
And, well,
That's not accurate. She would have had to work it with
an
or
elections
without it.
coordinator. So, I mean, it's hard for me to understand why not hiring an elections coordinator would have alleviated all of the extra hours that Ms. Irvine had to work. Now, I know Ms. Irvine works a lot because I was treasurer, and the two of us were oftentimes the last ones to leave here. So I get it. I think she does great work, but I do think that this is an inappropriate use of this grant, and it violates our policy. So with that,
let me ask you
I
this.
will not be supporting it.
Okay.
And I will surrender the floor to board members.
Sure.
And I have Mr. King and I have Ms. Matusek.
All right. Chair, I'd like to ask Attorney Dolan some questions, please. Jack, are you aware of this happening in other townships or cities? This type of precedence where we're using grant, they use a grant money to be able to compensate for hours worked or, things, particularly in the clerk's office?
I'm not aware of any situations where deputies subject to rules, as Paul outlined, have been compensated with additional grant monies.
If we were to move forward and do something like this here within Clinton Township, would that set a precedence for us here that would be like a snowball effect, or is it just, would this be a one-time only type situation, or what is your
Well,
recommendation?
I would like to ask Mr. Dolan to stick to legal questions rather than offering opinions on, the,
Well,
you know.
I do think it's a legal opinion
Well,
on whether
I
or
was
not.
about to say that, maybe to just cut to the chase on that, I'm not the labor attorney, and in terms of offering opinions on setting a precedent and so forth, it'd probably be better to speak to Mr. Smith or the labor attorney, but I think at the last meeting, there were some opinions on that. When,
Well, Mr. Dolan, could you
let me
speak
just
to the
finish.
fact
When
that
Mr.
this has
O'Leary
already
was
been
speaking.
done? Precedent has already been set?
Ms. Meltzer,
You were
Ms.
the
Meltzer, You
attorney.
do not have the floor.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Meltzer.
I just wanted to remind you, you was the attorney when this has been
Ms.
done
Meltzer,
before.
you don't have the floor.
Well, when you say when this has been done, one of the deputies was paid with grant money,
Yes.
and then who do you believe that was?
You were the attorney. You were the attorney 4 years ago when the deputy that we're speaking of was paid grant money, was compensated for the hours she worked. And this is just
This was Miss,
asking.
you're saying it was Miss Irvine?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered that, but that is not up for discussion right now because Mr. King has the floor. Trustee King has the
Okay.
floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dolan. I think at the end of the day, what I just want to be able to highlight is that what stops any one of our other directors or assistant directors for stating that they need to be compensated for the time that they put in. Nothing against Ms. Irvine. She works hard, does a good job, but there's also other individuals within the township who also work hard and they also do a good job. And they're also going to want to be seeking, additional monies or additional compensation for the time that they put in. I would argue that when we get grant funding and once it hits our township, it's then taxpayer dollars. That's my argument. Now, other people have different opinions. Maybe some folks here in the audience feel differently, but it's taxpayer dollars, and I think it should be going to areas or aspects that maybe weren't reimbursed in the elections process or weren't covered that, would better, our services from that perspective or better our account from that perspective. So that's my thought. And I would just say, it's not just the election component. There's also the aspect of managing, your team and your staff and doing that and doing a good job. And this seems to be a result of a revolving door with your team, Madam Clerk, where you have to go back and try to find ways to compensate them because of the hard work that they're putting in over and above what would be a standard. And I would just argue that there's probably some area of opportunity for you to be better in that space. So not trying to throw darts, just an observation based around the fact that we're, this is the second time we're revisiting this, and I know this is something that's been consistent over the course of time. Third, fourth. So
sorry,
no shots fired, but that's just a commentary.
I know, because you guys say no shots fired, then it's not. But if I do it, you say it is. Mr. Supervisor, to the point, please, can I just respond? This is not, it just goes to show how little you guys all know about elections. This was brought 4 years ago, and because of that, you at the time voted for it, Supervisor.
Trustee Matuzak.
And you also said you hope there's a solution for this in the future.
Trustee Matuzak.
But there wasn't one. There isn't one because there isn't the talent out there that knows how to operate elections. It's a very niche market. We just can't get the employees. That's the difficulty.
Ms. Meltzer, I've heard this over and over again.
Okay,
Please,
then quit saying things that aren't true.
So, Trustee Matuzak.
Thank you. Our deputy supervisors are well compensated. Most of them make more than the department heads make. It's an issue that I think we need to resolve as a board. The fact that you had an open position for months and months and months as for someone to assist in the running of elections, and other places all over the state have election coordinators or election directors within their clerk's office who handle elections. You choose to run your office not to do that. That was a vacant position. I fail to understand how having a vacant position does not cause then the people in your office to have to work longer hours. That does not make logical sense to me. Number two, our employees are given and earn comp time, and they should take it. In no way in the world is she going to take 3 months off. But, you know, I once used up my comp time by taking every Friday off for 3 months. Worked just fine. The work got done. I got my comp time. It was a great solution. People can take comp time. Elections do not happen 12 months a year. Not election? Take your comp time. I just don't think it's fair to the rest of our unrepresented employees that we're sort of handing out money. If I'm a deputy somewhere, I'm going to ask for more money. If I'm a lieutenant, I'm going to ask for more money. We clearly are handing out money. I think it's really important that we look at being fair to all the non-represented folks. I mean, we had the civil service director position up for a raise, and people said, no, we can't give that person a raise over and above, even though she started in an unfair position. The other thing that I have two things left. I'm a little worried about is the fact that she seems so critical and center to your office, that like she's the only person that can do all of these things. I mean, people get hit by buses. I don't wish that on her, but that as a management issue to me is a broader issue. The way you describe her work and what she does, I think that's, I would suggest looking at that. The other thing is that in your letter, you're accruing her comp time for months that have not yet occurred. You are saying this period covers from January 1, 2024 to May 31st, 2025.
No, that's just the range of the grant. That's not.
No, it says planning and operational deputy clerk, $10,109.43 for unused comp and vacation hours totaling 206 hours and 206.25 hours for the period of January 1, 2024 to May 31, 2025.
Yeah, but that's a specific hours, and that's the specific amount. And the grant period goes, so I'm letting you know that if you look at the supporting documentation, which everybody seems to be thinking is so important, look at that supporting documentation, and that's the range of the grant. That's the term of the grant.
But this sentence says she's got 206 hours for time that hasn't even happened yet.
Nope. I've said she's accumulated 206.75 hours.
Not what your sentence says.
And this is the amount of that.
I don't care about that part. I'm clearly voting no on this. People should take their comp time. You should fill those vacant positions. You should think about how your office is organized in terms of who's doing what work. That's my only comment.
Supervisor. Further discussion from the board. Treasurer Aiello.
Do we know how much money our clerk saved by not paying a election coordinator? What would that salary normally be? That pay that for that position for that duration?
It's I think it's about $65,000 plus benefits and healthcare and benefits. Yes. So the months that I didn't fill that position, the township, we saved a lot of money. Again, the difficulty in filling that position is not being able to find people that know what they're doing. It takes a long time to learn it, and you don't learn it by being in the position. You learn it by executing elections. So when I hire people January 1st and there's not an election until August, they're not learning how to become, if they've never done election coordinating work, they are not learning that. What they are doing is, filing and doing some things that the election coordinator would normally do, but not to the extent of actually being able to take and help the deputy clerk execute an election. You only learn how to do an election by doing an election, So it's very hard to fill a position. First of all, find the people that know how to do it, and secondly, to justify paying somebody $65,000 to file, MasterCards. It's just, so I've been very conscious of that. I have found an excellent elections coordinator now, but he has worked for me as a temp for many years, and that's why I was able to say, you are qualified. He took the test, but those people that I hire as temps, they don't necessarily stay on. if you all knew Neil Correa, oh my goodness, a brilliant mind, but he's now, a commercial pilot, and I can't count on him to be there. Will he be there when I need him? As much as he can, but it's just very hard to find people in this industry, and a lot have dropped off because of the threats and the environment. So,
is this an answer to
it is,
Treasurer Ayala's question?
So what I'm saying
Ayala,
is,
do you have
I
further
have
questions?
saved the township enormous amounts of money, and it's about $65,000, and that's to answer your question, $65,000 plus benefits.
Ms. Meltzer, has your deputy been at work the past couple months?
She has got a severe illness. She is working though. Yes, she's working from home. She can't drive. Without, I can't really say what she has. I guess it would be a problem.
And I don't want you to violate anybody's rights as an
But
employee,
she is working. No, she is working.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Thank God there is no election. Thanks God. And just so you know, I do work those same amount of hours too, and beyond. So it's not like she's doing all the work. She's integral to making it a successful election. But we all help, and we all work a lot of hours.
I had to talk to the finance office, and I said, can you help me understand how much you believe this comp time might have amounted to? And the figures don't match. From what you've provided me and what they've provided me, they're different numbers. They provided me a number of $7,768.94, but also pointed out that they don't think that she's been here, but has been reporting as regular time. So if she's off on a medical, or if she's working from home, there is a work from home policy. I don't think it's clear. I think actually we've been working on that to make some changes to it, but either way, bottom line for me is there shall be no payment of compensatory time at any time, including retirement or severance for exempt employees, and that is in the non-represented employee benefit policy, January 22nd. And the other bottom line is that this was not part of the grant application in the first place.
It was. You didn't read it carefully enough.
Further discussion. Board members.
Real quick question that I would just ask for the audience to think of their own is what makes the clerk's deputy more important than the rest of the other deputies that we have within the township? It would be one. The other question I have personally is, seems like Madam Clerk is great at writing grants. Maybe we can get her to do some more grants for our roads and things of that nature, and be focused in delivering on those spaces as opposed to, getting grants to make up for managerial mistakes.
All right.
I'd like to
Mr.
make a
Bushel.
motion to approve the
Mr.
funding
Bushel.
from Board Awarded Institute of Responsive Government Grant. I'm making a motion.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Been moved and supported.
There
Public
again,
participation.
many of the citizens in the township and myself have been exempt employees. We know exempt employees aren't just, it's not just the township rules. To become an exempt employee, that's covered under federal rules and the National Labor Relations Board. And it's accepted that's what you are accepting that right when you sign up for being an exempt employee. On compensatory time, in the automotive companies, which I'm retired from now, but if you didn't use your vacation and comp time by the end of the year, it was gone. It wasn't, it wasn't that you were so important that you could not go someplace. Literally, if you didn't use it, it was gone. And on the idea of this being taxpayer money, once this private company gives a grant to Clinton Township, that is a grant, a gift to the citizens, taxpayers of Clinton Township. It is taxpayer money. I realize a lot of times at these meetings, a lot of false statements are made, but boy, that's a whopper to say that, that once the township has this money that is for the taxpayers, it is tax dollars. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Treasurer Aiello.
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
No.
Trustee Matuzak?
No.
Trustee Kress?
No.
Supervisor Gilliam?
No.
Trustee King?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Keep losing my agenda. Public comment. That concludes the agenda items, public comment.
Did I bring it before you, Judge? Yeah, well, it's been done before. Yeah, they knew.
Mr. Bushel.
Yes, at the meeting where you were approving a site plan on 14 Mile Road, here just recently, I had brought up the fact, and it was the fact that he's, like whenever I say something, I tell people, hey, watch the videos, look at the documentation, do not take my word for it. But myself and the citizen that actually lived next door noted that at the Planning Commission, not only on that case, but the Planning Commission does not allow people to speak when site plans are in board, even the person that lives literally adjacent to it. I also pointed out that for a long time, many years until I got it corrected, the Planning Commission and the ZBA did not have a public comment section at all, even in violation of the Open Meetings Act. There again, the attorney had to get with both groups to get it approved. Well, at the ZBA meeting, you had, and it's one of your appointees, it's all 7 of you, it's your appointee. He's the chairman of the Planning Commission and he's a member of the ZBA, so you obviously think his work is great. As you know, I sent you an email the next day to watch this half-hour meeting because he made wild derogatory comments that I'm sure, people would laugh at because he said, oh, that was all wrong. And he was totally upset with me, went screaming at me. Then he went after the planning director saying, you should have backed me up when he said that, that we don't let people talk. We let people talk. Well, no, they don't. And there again, don't take my word for it. Watch the meetings. But this board, if that is, obviously, if you allow this man to continue in both these positions, this is what you're expecting. You are expecting them to send the letters. They send letters all the time to you saying that these things meet all public, all of our laws and such. And it's not true. You know it. It's been proved many times. There again, anything I do, I follow up with the documentation. It really bothers people that I actually put the laws down and send it in. And I send a lot of emails. I sure do, because I've got this abomination across the street from me that was approved, and there again, the Planning Commission said, this met all the laws. We all know it didn't. And so I'm asking this board to, after you watch that meeting, decide if you want to be known as this being your person that you feel represents your board. At the Planning Commission, it's the chair, no less, and on the ZBA. It's, to me, some people might laugh at it, but I would say he was having a nervous breakdown. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public participation, a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Moved by Clerk Meltzer, supported by
I support it.
Treasurer Aiello. Man, you're going to have to speak up.
You got to speak up. He's very low.
So shy. So shy over there.
Yeah. Supported by Treasurer Aiello. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Clerk Meltzer, yes. Treasurer Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Wade?
Yes.
Trustee Matuzak?
Yes.
Trustee Kress?
Yes.
Supervisor Gilliam?
Yes.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.